My job literally fired me on the spot, but then came back to me asking if I would still do my job on a contract basis. So I decided to get some petty revenge by stringing them along in a way that not only left them panicked in the way I was panicked when I got fired, but also gave me the opportunity to shut them down one last time before I went to my new job. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I was the sole developer building an app for a client. My manager, let's call him John, had no idea how app development worked and frequently asked questions that basically revealed a breathtaking amount of illiteracy when it comes to technology that made me wonder whether or not he'd even seen a computer before. He didn't have our backs and he was only interested in pleasing the sales team and the people above him. Now, I was extremely stressed out, doing my best to meet impossible checkpoint deadlines with no resources. I got interrupted midday to attend a surprise meeting with all the other developers, and it's here that we were all literally laid off, effective immediately. Like they said, okay, stop what you're doing, pack your stuff, and turn in your badge. And I honestly felt a mix of panic and relief. Panic because, yeah, I'm unemployed now, and I have very little runway in savings, but also relief because I don't have to do this crap anymore. I don't have to deal with John anymore, screw this app, and screw that guy. So I grabbed a box, I scrawled my name on it, and I started packing up. John then stopped by my desk and asked me if I'd be interested in working on a contract basis to finish the application. I had not even left the building yet, and John was asking me if I wanted to get paid to do the job I had just been laid off from. Confused, worried, and still in shock, I told him to get lost. And those aren't the exact words I used. I think what I actually said was yes, and John said he talked to upper management to figure out the details and that he would call me. So I went home and I dusted off my resume. I started job hunting, talking to recruiters, applying, scheduling interviews, etc. Well, a week later, John called me up. Apparently he had talked to management and they agreed to pay me a perfectly reasonable amount on a contract basis just to complete the app that I've been working on. It was essentially a lifeline that would keep me afloat until I found something else. So I was surprised to hear from my mouth saying, oh, I can't do it for that amount, I need more. Well, John sounded stunned and suddenly very nervous. He had to deliver this app, and I was the only person who knew anything about how it worked and the state it was in. He stammered and asked how much I would need to get it done. Again, my mouth shoved my brain into a locker and, much to my horror, said double. I will need double that. I then slapped my hand over my mouth like I'd obviously lost my mind. I was sacrificing myself, spitting on a perfectly good offer, one that would keep me fed and warm under a roof, out of pure spite and bitterness towards John and the company. Well, all I heard was silence. I heard him go pale. He said to me, what? Double? Okay, I mean, I can see. I'll go back and ask, but they're not gonna go for that. There's no way. But I responded back by saying, okay, well, just let me know what they say. And then I hung up. I thought to myself, oh my God, what did I just do? Did I really just wave off the rescue boat? I'm so screwed. I then land an interview a few days later, and it goes incredibly well, and it seems like a good culture fit. In fact, they all but told me that they would make me an offer. I'm confident I'm about to have not just a job, but a job that is so much better than the one I'd been unceremoniously punted out of just a few weeks earlier. I'm finally starting to breathe again, and I'm going to be okay. And just like clockwork, right after I said that to myself, the phone rings, and as I pick it up, I learn that it's John. He sounds so happy, and he's got amazing news. He says to me, I can't believe this, but management has agreed to pay you double the rate we initially offered you because we really need to get this across the finish line. Can you give me an estimate on how long you'll need to finish it? Well, it's here that I happily said to John, sorry, John, I can't do it. I've got something else lined up. And honestly, with all the garbage these people put me through, I was so happy to burn them one last time because they put me in a vulnerable situation that I will truly never forget. Okay, it is so sinister that someone would not only fire you from your job, but then be like, hey, can you finish this app anyways? Sorry about that. We really need this to go out for, the job you don't have anymore. Bro, that would piss me off beyond end. Are you kidding me right now? If you really wanted that done, then maybe you should have, not fired me. I don't know, that just seems really counterintuitive in my opinion. And it's so insulting because they literally gave you the exact same amount that you were getting paid at the job in the first place. Because it's like, bro, if you wanted me to finish the job, then don't fire me. Just let me do my job. So I love the back and forth you gave John. I love that you basically said, I'm gonna need double the amount, only to then turn him down in the end. That is hilarious. This guy absolutely deserves that. So good for you for getting some petty revenge on this guy, because from the sounds of it, without you doing this, they're probably screwed and they're probably never gonna finish this. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My law partner wanted to shame me all because I had a messy desk. So I decided to get some petty revenge by literally exposing the fact that he took a very embarrassing photo years ago that I know for a fact he will not want to be out in the general public, which resulted in this guy literally backpedaling so hard that he stopped bothering me for pretty much the entire time that I worked there, giving me the most satisfaction of all time because this guy absolutely deserved it. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I used to be a partner at a law firm. Around 10 years ago, one of my partners, who I will refer to as Chad, decided that he did not like my messy desk. Chad would openly make snide remarks in partner meetings and at firm events. I would always respond with a smile and quote Einstein just to kind of like break the tension. Well, not getting the results he wanted, Chad finally decided to try something new to shame me. The attorneys had their own offices around the inside wall of the building. Each office had a long window next to the door that looked into the hallways and cubicles in the building. If you were outside of the office, then you could see into the office. The long windows had shades and the shades could only be opened from the inside of the office. So me, alongside the other attorneys, always kept them closed so no one could see in. Well, one day when I arrived at work, I found that my shades had been opened. And this is no big deal. I mean, I simply closed them and I went about my day. But to my surprise, when I arrived the next morning, the shades were again open the next day, meaning anyone looking in had a clear view of my messy desk. Over the course of around 2 weeks, this pattern continued. When I left work, my shades would be shut, and then they would be open when I arrived the next morning. I figured that perhaps the cleaning crew was opening my shades, so I started paying attention to the other offices. Numerous other offices also kept their shades closed, and they were still closed when I checked them in the morning. Chad usually got to work very early, so it was pretty obvious that Chad was opening my shades. Given that we were both professional people and partners at the law firm, I decided I should go have a reasonable chat with Chad. Yeah, that's absolutely a joke. I decided that instead, petty revenge was my best option. Before I ever started working at that firm, the firm had taken a trip to a local lake together. I found photos of this trip, and one of the photos featured Chad wearing a backwards ball cap, flexing for the camera next to one of the female employees. Chad had skinny arms and almost no biceps. I believe he was just being silly when he flexed, but he still looked like a dork, and not like a respectable law partner who commands respect. So I blew up the photo to an A4 size and made multiple color copies. I then wrote on the back of the photo, "Please do not open my blinds. I prefer them closed. Also, if you remove this photo, I will put up another as I have multiple copies." Before I left work, I taped the photo at eye level onto my blinds so that the side with the picture faced towards the closed blinds and the note faced the inside of my office, meaning that whoever was opening my blinds would have to see the note. As long as the blinds were closed, no one would see the photo. And if someone, namely Chad, opened the blinds, then everyone would see Chad's big dumb face and tiny flex bicep. Well, the next morning I arrived for work feeling a little giddy and a little apprehensive. I then walked to my office and I found the blind shut. I thought that maybe Chad hadn't tried his normal stunt. However, when I opened my office door, to my surprise, the note was gone. I looked on the floor, but there was no note. There was just a little tape left on my blinds like someone had ripped the photo off, but my blinds were still shut. So I retaped the note and the photo to my blinds, and guess what? It was gone again the next morning. However, my blinds still remained shut. I decided not to put up another note, and no one has touched my blinds ever again, which literally solved my problem and proved that Chad is an idiot. And in case anyone is wondering, although my desk was cluttered with paper, they were copies of documents. The files were complete and I never lost documents on my desk. I knew what was on my desk and I could easily find what I was looking for instead of going to the file each time I needed something, meaning that Chad had no reason to complain about my desk because it honestly wasn't bothering anybody and it was absolutely exactly the way I needed it. Okay, I love this so much because yeah, this guy was absolutely being a jerk. First off, if he's gonna take shirtless photos of him flexing, he needs to make sure that he had gone to the gym, otherwise this is only going to be embarrassing for him. Because dude, why on earth would you like start a fight with someone who's just gonna answer right back with something way worse? And to like complain about someone's desk, like dude, this is not bothering you, this is not harming you. The guy's desk is like a little bit messy, but that doesn't mean he can't do his job, like just lay off. So good for you for getting some revenge, like sometimes this is exactly what it takes. And in my opinion, I think Chad absolutely had it coming and there's no excuse for the way he acted. My mother-in-law tried to force me to attend their church services, saying that when I'm in their house, I had no choice in the matter. So I decided to get some petty revenge by literally applying the same logic over to her, saying that if she ever visits my house, she has to go to my church whether she likes it or not, which made her freak out in a way that I was truly hoping for. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, my wife and I are of different faiths. Think evangelical and Catholic, but neither of us was really devout about it all. But my mother-in-law was a different animal, total zealot in the literal meaning of the word. word. She was the self-appointed matriarch of the family and an over-the-top religious zealot in a hardcore evangelical Protestant faith. I went once with my then fiance, and they had people in the congregation stand up and confess their sins to the whole congregation, and that was more than enough for me to swear that I would never go back to that. When we would visit for Sunday dinner, they would have a church service in the morning and a second service in the evening. The first time we stayed the weekend, they said to us, "When are you going to get ready for church?" But I just said, "Oh, no thank you. I'm not of your faith, but have a good service yourself." She then basically took the stance that since I was in her house under her roof, I was basically required to attend with the family. We then went back and forth, but she simply wouldn't budge. I was getting pressure from my now wife as well with the usual, "Oh, keep the peace" BS. I then was hit with a perfect solution. I basically told my mother-in-law that I absolutely agree with her position, and it was entirely correct and proper to insist on my being subject to her demands when staying in her home. But because it was so correct and proper, now in the future when she came to visit my home, all of us would be attending my church and my faith, which to this hyper-evangelical Protestant zealot probably made her pants crawl up her ample derriere, even at the mere thought of that. She then sputtered and deflected and said, "No, I demand you agree in front of your family and God that you will be attending my church when you come visit us." And since we had the only grandkids, she couldn't just refuse to ever come over. Well, after some deliberation, she finally agreed that I did not have to attend their services, or any service for that matter. And the icing on top of this is that years later, I got a begrudging kudos from the father-in-law that I'd been the only sister-in-law to ever stand up to her. Even their own kids have to hide their own booze and devil's lettuce at their neighbor's house when she comes over, which is really weird and incredibly intrusive. Man, I will never understand other people who try to force others to go to their church. Like, dude, give me a break. Do I have any free will in the matter? Just because I'm visiting you doesn't mean I'm suddenly going to join your faith. That is not how this works. If she had just been normal about it and said, "Hey, you want to go to church with us?" and then left it at that once the original poster said no, then guess what? That's the end of it. Just leave it alone. Like, by all means, please go ahead and invite someone to church. Like, if that's what you want to do, then go for it. I think that's relatively harmless and it's not that big of a deal. But for anybody to be like, "Oh, if you're going to be in my house, you have no choice in the matter," that is completely uncalled for, and yes, it can absolutely be used against you. So I love the way the original poster handled this, because I don't think the mother-in-law was expecting that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for buying the house right next to my former friend, who I had a falling out with in college after she plagiarized some of my work? Because even though I'm happy with where I live and I'm very excited to live in this location, this former friend and her family are pissed that I'm living there, putting me in a situation where I'm really not sure if I'm the jerk or if I'm justified to just do what I want to do. Here's currently what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I used to be friends with a woman who I met in university. We were really that close. I mean, we were hanging out every day and got to know each other really well. We eventually had a falling out as she stole a piece of my academic work, and I faced an investigation from the academics and staff from higher up. While we were friends, she told me she was from one town, and I told her I was from a different town, and both of the towns we're from are seaside resorts. I was shocked when I found out about the town she was from because my mother went on holiday there every year, and I scattered her ashes there when I was 19 after she lost her battle with breast cancer. Her town is a really popular and sought-after area in England. The prices can go up really high even for a 3-bedroom home, and it doesn't come by that easily. Well, I searched the town on a real estate site just to see if there's any properties that might have come up for sale, and when I looked, I saw one that was well within my budget. However, this property was so affordable because it needed modernizing and renovating. But this property was also in a perfect location. It's by the seaside, I can go on long runs on the beach every day, which I do for my mental health as it is, and it's a 5-minute walk from where I scattered my mom's ashes. Not to mention the fact that it's an 8-minute walk to the train station, and I can get the train to central London, which is where I work 2 days a week and so forth. Like, it's really cheap to live in this area. Now, I did not step inside this property until after New Year's Day because there were a lot of jobs that builders needed to do. After New Year's Day, I got to work doing the renovations I can do. Well, a few weeks ago, an Amazon van pulled up to drop off my packages, and my next door neighbor wasn't in. He then asked me if I could drop off a package, and when I saw the name, I realized that my next door neighbor was my former friend, as the name itself is very unique spelling. So I looked at the driver and I said, "No, I can't do this for you." Well, fast forward, and my ex-friend has now found out I live next door to her and her parents. And it's here that they banged on my door, causing a commotion with all of my neighbors coming out as well. Now, from speaking to the relatives, I'm apparently a jerk for moving into the house that I'm currently living in. And on top of that, I'm apparently a jerk for letting there be tension in the street. But it doesn't bother me that I live next door to her. As far as I'm concerned, I've moved on from this incident with her. I live in a dream location, and honestly, I refuse to move at all just because one person's unhappy. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because I really just don't know what to do from here. Okay, I find this hilarious because good lord, the fact that you moved right next to this one person who tried to like ruin your academic career, like the timing of that is just absolutely impeccable. First of all, I think you have the right attitude here. I think the fact that you're just not letting this lady get to you and you're instead trying to like move on and be like, hey, this is a great property and I'm not going to give it up. Like that's exactly the way you should do this because what they're asking is just insane. Do they really expect you to just suddenly move out and be like, oh, I can't live there. I would be living next to the woman who tried to ruin my college career. Oops, my bad. Let me get out of here. Like, no, bro, I'm going to live next to you and you're just going to have to deal with it. In fact, I'm probably never going to talk to you because why would I? And if I'm being completely honest, the only reason anyone has a problem with it is because they're the one at fault and they feel guilty about it. They're now faced with the reality of like, oh, here's this person I literally plagiarized and now I've got to live next to them and deal with this kind of guilt all day. You're such a jerk for living here. And it's like, bro, shut up. What are you talking about? That is such a weird stance to take. Like, there's no reason to act like that. So no, you're not the jerk for living in your house. Like, these people are stupid for expecting you to move just because of this one lady. Because if I was in your shoes, I would happily live every day just as normal as anything else. And I think by doing that, you can prove to your neighbors that no, I am not the problem here. This lady is because she can't let go of a grudge that is literally one-sided. Which, if you ask me, is exactly what's going on right now. Am I the jerk for purchasing my own new wireless router after my friend gifted me one that quite literally was not working? Because now my friend is really pissed off at me and said that I'm being ungrateful by not like accepting his gift and using it. And it's put me in a situation where I really just don't know how to make this right. Here's what's going on. I'm a 26-year-old female and I moved out on my own for the first time this last November. And this is all after living with a previous partner of 4 years. So I was using this 10-year-old router for my parents, which had severe internet quality issues. I then became close friends with someone who I will call Tyler for the sake of the story shortly after that. We both explicitly agreed that we were only friends and not interested in each other romantically. He said that he had an unused router that he'd give me as part of my Christmas gift. Well, Christmas came around and Tyler gave me a thoughtful gift assortment, while my gift to him was a Spotify membership. When we tried to set up the router, I learned it was actually a modem/router combo, which meant I couldn't use the modem my internet service provider provided me. He had also changed the default password to a randomly generated one and didn't know which password was correct, and he even sent me a list of possible ones to try the next day. But I just put it off and I continued using my old router. I also realized that if he had changed the Wi-Fi password, he may have changed the admin login too, since he's very security focused. I didn't want to spend time troubleshooting an unknown device with unknown settings, especially since I didn't know how old it was or what else was configured. Well, by mid-January, my internet was unusable, so I bought myself a new $100 router that fits my small studio. And you know what? Everything immediately worked perfectly. I told Tyler I was excited, and he replied by saying, "Did you even try the passwords I gave you? That's annoying, I'm not gonna lie." I offered to return the router, but he had said that he gave it to me because he didn't want it, not because it didn't work. When I explained why I chose to buy my own instead, he talked down to me about password security and internet service provider risks. He then said that I bought a router because I couldn't be bothered to try his passwords. And when I expressed that he was making me uncomfortable talking down to me like that, he said to me, "You should be uncomfortable because that was part of your Christmas package. I put a whole lot of thought and energy into something specifically tailored for you. It's hard to not take it personally. I recall how hurt you felt when a certain ex threw away your gift." And the ex's gift in question was a drinkware set with guitar picks blown into the side of them, and I just didn't see this hand-me-down router on the same level as that. So I let him know how grateful I was for his thoughtful gift, but explained that the router gesture just didn't work for my needs. Tyler's response to the next day was that he's going to pick up his sewing machine that he had left at my house. He then said to me, "As for being friends, well, I don't really know. I'm not in the headspace to think about it. I'm canceling our plans for hanging out. That's it for now." He then came to pick up the sewing machine, and it really felt like a breakup. He didn't even meet my eyes or say hi or see you later or anything like that, despite me trying to be warm. So am I the jerk for buying my own router in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, this is so stupid because this guy put no thought into this. He's trying to sit there and be like, you know, I put a lot of thought and energy into this. This was specifically tailored for you. It's really hard not to take it personally. And it's like, dude, if this really was some personalized thing, then why not go through the trouble of like changing the password now and giving it to her in like good shape? Why would he be like, "Oh, here you go. By the way, this is going to be crazy inconvenient to set up, and if you don't like it, I'm going to hate you forever." Like, dude, what a complete weirdo. That's so stupid. And it's also kind of suspect that he's like, "Oh, you have to use that router. I put a lot of work into to it, why don't you just use it? Like, is that router hacked in some way? Is he like spying on you secretly? I don't know. That just seems really weird, especially with the way he's acting. He's like basically breaking up with you as a friend by taking his sewing machine and being like, I'm not gonna look at you. I'm gonna get my stuff and leave. And it's like, dude, we're not dating. I don't know what's going on right now. So no, you're not the jerk. You literally need internet to work. And the fact that this guy's trying to be like, wow, I can't believe you didn't go through this really inconvenient process. That is a really weird stance to take, especially coming from someone who didn't even try to make this like a usable product. Because if he actually cared, he would have set this up ahead of time instead of dumping it on you all at once and then getting offended when you're like, I just seriously don't want to deal with this. My entitled sister-in-law scammed her mom out of $10,000, claiming that she needed an emergency surgery, but in reality, she just wanted the money so that she could get chest implants. And I'm honestly so blown away by her entitlement. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my mother-in-law is not a wealthy woman. She had a plan with her insurance where she could have a $10,000 loan at the drop of a hat for medical purposes. And this fact will be important for this story. Now, when it comes to my sister-in-law, she was in a toxic relationship where she and her boyfriend would be drunk 12 to 20 hours a day. They got into a few domestic fights, and one where she had an open wound on her lower back, and another fight caused him to have a broken nose and a black eye. We attempted to intervene between the two of them, but they would literally never give a full story. We would be there during police reports to try and pull more information out, but the stories would always be about how he tripped down some stairs or how she stood up into a piece of glass. We spoke individually with them about getting temporary restraining orders, but neither of them pursued one until their relationship finally ended. Now, they did finally leave each other after she cheated on him for the second time. 2 months after their relationship ended, my sister-in-law went to her mom and told her that she needs an emergency chest surgery, all because of an injury sustained during her relationship with her ex. She wanted her mom to pay for it with the medical loan and that over time she would pay her back. Well, her mom called me as I work in the healthcare field, so family kind of calls me about everything medical related, just so she could ask me about what type of surgery she would possibly need. I looked up the surgeon and I saw that he was a local plastic surgeon who mostly did breast augmentations and lifts. I told my mother-in-law to find out the name of the surgery, but my sister-in-law refused to name it, and I told my mother-in-law, do not give her any of the money without knowing what it was for. But unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears as she gave her the $10,000. And wouldn't you guess it, my sister-in-law got a boob job. She literally got fired her first day back to work because she talked back to her boss. She hadn't informed them that she was getting a medical procedure done, and when the boss asked her to hand out food trays for an event, she said to him, I can't do that. Can't you see that I just got a boob job? She later moved out of state and got another job, and she has not paid my mother-in-law a single penny. And my mother-in-law even had to take money out against the house just to pay for it. Now, it's been 6 years since the surgery, and fortunately, my mother-in-law has stopped communicating with her daughter and therefore has stopped enabling her as well. And hopefully she never comes back. Wow, your sister-in-law is a piece of garbage. She lied to her mom just to get $10,000 just so she could get a boob job. Like, that is so unfair and so toxic, it's not even funny. Like, I can only imagine how much stress the mother-in-law has gone through when it comes to their daughter and how they've had this tumultuous relationship and have had so many domestic issues in the past. And now in a last stretch to try and like help their daughter out, they're like, yes, I'll give you $10,000 for the chest surgery, only for them to turn around and be like, psych, I got a boob job, sorry. Like, that is such a massive betrayal of trust. It honestly is disgusting. And this wasn't free money. This is literally a $10,000 loan. It must have been a nightmare to pay that back in a reasonable amount of time. So yeah, your sister-in-law is a massive jerk, and it's a really good thing that she's not around any longer. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mother-in-law is constantly badgering me to try and have kids, despite the fact that I've chosen to be child-free in my marriage. But now I am heartbroken, and I simply don't know if I should talk to my husband about this, or if I should just stay silent. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I have been married for 2 years, and we have chosen to be child-free. My mother-in-law makes comments about kids all the time, and today I found out she even approached my mother and asked her to put pressure on me to at least have one, since apparently I'm depriving her son and myself of the experience. Now, I told my husband that someone said this to my mother as he found me crying today, and I had to admit what was hurting me, but I didn't admit that it was my mother-in-law that was behind it, and it's making me think that maybe I should have told him it was her. Now, I need to give some important important background for this situation. My choice to be child-free is not an easy one, and it has hurt a lot. I am infertile, and I had around 2 decades of surgery relating to my reproductive organs. And she, my mother-in-law, knows all about this. I love kids and spend as much time with my friends' children as possible, and I always take an active role. But due to the surgeries as well as some awful stuff in my past, along with mental health issues and ADHD, I decided that being a parent wasn't the path for me, and my husband was very pleased, as he wasn't interested in having kids anyways. I feel so heavy with this on my mind, but I don't want to tell my husband, as he is a fixer. He will want to step into action and put things right with his mother, which I am grateful for, but this could really hurt his relationship with her. So I'm treading very carefully about admitting that she's still pushing things behind closed doors. She sometimes does and says things that make me feel like she sees me as a person who took her son away, but most of the time we get along fine, and she's been kind and supportive. Her need to be a grandmother seems to be a blind spot when it comes to being accepting of our life choices. So should I admit it was actually his mother saying all these things, or should I just let it blow over and address it head on if she makes comments to us in person again? What should I do? Wow, your mother-in-law is super toxic. There is no good excuse for her to say those kinds of things, especially considering the awful things that have happened to you in the past that apparently she's well aware of. Like seriously, why can't people just mind their own business? There was no reason for her to step in and make those kind of comments, and honestly, it's all super disgusting. But on that note, there is no way I would ever let this blow over in some kind of way. I wouldn't just sit by and let this stop happening, because based on the way your mother-in-law acts, it really seems like this is gonna keep happening. She's gonna keep making these comments, and they're gonna be geared towards you. And that is not fair in the slightest. You've made your decision. You don't want to have kids. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. But if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would talk to the husband, and I would tell him exactly what's going on. And that doesn't mean that you still can't tell her exactly how you feel, but at least when you tell your husband, the both of you can do it together. Because this lady very clearly crossed a serious line, and that is something that you definitely do not have to put up with. Am I the jerk for throwing my neighbor's cigarette ends back over their fence? Because right now she's complaining I shouldn't have done that because of her kids. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and our neighbor is an absolute nightmare. We got along at first, but once the following situation happened, she turned volatile and unhinged. For the sake of the story, we'll call her Jane. Jane is not her real name. Now, Jane is a single mother with a 5-year-old and a 4-month-old baby. It's just our 2 houses connected, and our front gardens are connected with no fence or wall boundary. And it's important to note that she has family and friends very locally that come around a lot. So a few months into living here, my partner and I go to tidy our front garden, and we notice that there's loads of cigarette ends. Now, neither of us smoke, and neither does Jane, but we have seen the mom, who visits a lot, smoke out the front of the house, and usually has a cup used as an ashtray. We assume that she's thrown them on the floor, or the cup has knocked over and the wind has blown them into our garden. And while this is annoying, it's not that big of a deal. We look closer, and there are a lot of cigarette ends, not just a few like I was hoping. So I politely texted Jane, informing her of the situation, and asked her if she can come and clean them up, as there are quite a lot. Well, she replied bluntly saying that they aren't hers. I replied back by saying that I know she doesn't smoke, but we know that her mom does. And I say again, I know it was probably the wind blowing them over, but there are quite a lot, so can she please just come and clean them up? She then says to me that her mom doesn't smoke out the front and only does it out the back. But I say that we have definitely seen her out the front smoking. But then Jane says that her mom puts them down the drain, which is very illegal where we are. I replied by saying, can you please just come sort them out? And after that, she never replied. Now, we don't put a time limit on it, but we leave it there for a week just to see what happens, and still no one comes to clear them up. We contact our local council about them just in case it happens again, and they said to take pictures, bag them, and count them, and then return them to Jane. So that's exactly what we do. And after doing some collecting, we found 42 cigarette ends. My partner goes outside to clear them up after a week, and I was standing near him, and about halfway through, Jane leaves the house with a guy and a pram, and they both just stopped, they stared at us, and then they walked off. When we had finished and taken pictures, we wrote on the bag 42 cigarette ends. We then sealed it in a Ziploc bag and threw it over the back garden fence into their garden. Well, a few hours later, she comes home and finds them, takes a picture of it, and messages me saying, "Thanks for throwing these in my garden knowing that I have children." I then pointed out that they were in a sealed bag and that originally they were all loose in our garden where her child could have picked them up and eaten them. And I asked her a week ago to please pick them up. Now, for some additional context, Jane has always been awful to her kids. I mean, we have seen and heard a lot. We were constantly contacting CPS, so her saying that we don't care about her kids is a joke because we cared more than her. So are we the jerks for throwing the cigarette ends back over my neighbor's fence? Because right now Jane is very angry, and at this point we seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I've dealt with neighbors who have done this kind of stuff before, and trust me, if you let them do it, it will add up so fast. Especially when you have a neighbor that acts like this. Like, it really seems like nothing you ever say or do will ever be good enough, and she will always find some way of weaseling out of responsibility, which already makes things like super stressful as it is, because let's say something bad happens in the neighborhood or to like your property, you would at least hope at the bare minimum that they would be there for you to some degree in terms of like keeping your property safe. But this Jane lady doesn't sound like the brightest tool in the shed. If anything, she sounds like one of those toxic neighbors who is always going to find some stupid excuse just so she can avoid any responsibility in her life. And trust me, I've lived next to people who act like this, and it is so obnoxious dealing with them. And I know in my case, it was like living next to an adult who was actually a toddler. They didn't care about you or anybody else, and they refused to fix any of the stuff that they damaged or did wrong. And that in and of itself was so infuriating on a daily basis. Now, when it comes to these neighbors and all that they've done, I will say it's probably time for you to get a camera of some kind at your front door, pointed directly at the spot that their mom likes to smoke. That way you can prove to them that yes, she does smoke up there, and yes, you do need to clean them up. And also, she's only using her kids as some kind of excuse to make you feel bad, because if her kids are out in the back garden doing whatever they want, especially at 5 years old and 4 months old without any kind of supervision, then that's more of a Jane problem than a you problem. It's just more evidence that she's not a good mom, and she's also not a good neighbor. So no, I don't think you're the jerk, because in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My entitled friend hired me on to work at her job, but slowly began to prove to me why she was not a good friend at all. And after dealing with months of her not paying me on time, as well as her trying to blame me for things going wrong at the job, I finally hit my breaking point and decided to quit on the spot. And I'm honestly so glad to be away from that toxic workplace. Here's what happened. Years ago, I had a job that I loved, but it was a dead end, so I decided to change jobs. But before that, I met this older woman who worked on the same building but for a different employer. She seemed pretty cool, and we used to hang out when we could, and she said that she would love to work with me someday. Then she got fired and we stopped talking, but just for timing. She had told me that all of her previous jobs had ended badly, but she also explained why it was always unfair. I was young and admired her, so I believed her, and I even helped her get her stuff back, because when she got fired, it was on bad terms, and she wouldn't be allowed in the building any longer. But I never got the details as to why. I found another job after that, then got another at the same time, and lived my life quite happily. COVID hit and I lost one of my jobs. I found a very low-paying one and started to get desperate for money. I remembered my friend from back then and thought that she could give me some advice and some moral support. I never thought that she would offer me a job because of her history, but in the end she actually did. Now, trust me, it was not super well paid, but it was better than my other second job, so I did the math, and with those two salaries, I'd be fine again, and I would quit the low-paying job. She is the president of a non-profit foundation with a business partner, and I was going to be the third person on the team. The day I started the new position with her, she told me that she did her math wrong. She could only pay me a very low amount, which was lower than my previous job, almost minimum wage. She also never hired me, so she never paid for Social Security at all. So I was stuck there, really struggling with money, but at least the job was super fun and challenging, and I was working with someone I thought was a friend, so that was kind of good at the time. She paid my salary on time the first 2 months, but then every end of the month, she would literally start crying about her own financial status, how she has no money at all, and she could only pay me a part of it now and then the rest later on. And she did do that, but still, it wasn't an ideal situation. The rest of the month, she would have her nails done, go to expensive parties, and go out on vacations, as well as lend money to her business partner who had substance problems. Things started to get worse every month, but I never thought a friend would screw me over on purpose. And until then, I felt sorry for her. But that was so silly of me. She had started to use money from her in-laws without them knowing, and they started to get suspicious. And I think that's how she managed to pay me, but she never put that into words. It was just these vague implications complications. We were working on a project for the government, and after the first delivery, the government said there were many errors in our proposal. Well, when we checked it, it was all the things that she had done. But she went ahead and yelled at me and tried to blame me for it. And that's when it clicked in my head. My part wasn't even relevant for that part of the process yet. I asked her to stop yelling at me and to please explain what she needed from me, because she wasn't being clear and I wasn't the one in charge of the faulty parts, so I wasn't sure how to fix that. Well, she just started yelling even more and was now saying that she had a friend in the same field check my work, and apparently it was incomplete. Now, it really was because I needed her part to finish mine, and she would also just keep changing it. Now, that was on a Friday, so I told her I was going to keep working from home and we could talk on Monday. Well, Monday came around and I went to the office and she wasn't there. I tried to call her, but I still got no response. I texted her that we needed to talk before I started working, but she replied that she was at the ministry, which I knew was impossible for a number of reasons. I then told her that I quit, and I was taking all social media account passwords with me until she paid me my full salary. And it's funny, the week before she was crying about not having any money, but this time I got the money right away, so I gave her the passwords. And that's how I learned that just because someone is your friend, that doesn't mean that it's a good idea to let the important things go. Wow, that really is an awful situation, and I'm so sorry you dealt with that. Like, there are so many red flags in this story, it's not even funny. And I'm sure in hindsight you can probably spot them, but the first glaring one, in my opinion, is how every single job she's ever had has ended badly. Like, I can understand not liking your job or having some kind of conflict at work, but for all of your jobs to end in some kind of like misery and woe, or for you to be fired from every single job, like, that's a massive red flag. Because I've had good jobs and I've had bad jobs, but I've never been fired from all of them. Like, that's insane. Also, what's the deal with her not being allowed in the building? Like, that's really weird and kind of sketchy. It makes me wonder what she did to make that happen, because that doesn't just happen all of a sudden overnight. You have to do something pretty serious for them to be like, yeah, we can't have you in the building. And also for me, the cherry on top of me like quitting on the spot would be this lady not paying me on time. Like, I don't care how many talks I have with my manager where they try to be like, oh, we're a family, we gotta work together. If they don't pay me the money I'm owed for the services I've rendered, then they can expect me to not do that job anymore because I'm definitely gonna quit. Like, that is an unspoken sacred rule of work where if I'm gonna work, you're gonna pay me. This is not a charity and I'm not doing this for free because I need this money to pay rent, and that lady's crocodile tears are not gonna pay for your bills. So truly, good for you for quitting and finding something different, because this lady was sketchy from the very start, and hopefully you never run into that situation ever again. Am I the jerk for standing by my sister and telling our parents they need to mind their own business and leave her be? Because right now they've become incredibly intrusive into her life, and I'm honestly sick of it and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister lost her husband when she was 22 years old and became a young widow and a widowed single mom. For the last 16 years, she has not dated or found another romantic relationship, and she doesn't want one. And she has told me this herself. We talked about how yes, she has felt lonely from time to time, and she has spent more time with family and friends when that happens, but that she has never found someone who has made her feel interested, and she doesn't believe that another relationship is in the cards for her. She loves her husband and she misses him a lot, and when she thinks about romance, it's only with him. It's not just having a partner in general that she wants, but she thinks about him. She had grief therapy, she's been part of a young widows and widowers group, she's not wallowing or miserable, and there are moments of sadness or wishing her life were different, but she's generally happy, and she doesn't want to find someone else. To her, it's unimaginable that she would ever feel that way about another person. She has admitted to being set up with people who are technically her type, but she was never interested and never felt a spark or anything like that. Well, our parents cannot accept her remaining single, and they have talked about how she denied her daughter the chance to have another dad. They talked about how she denied her the chance to see a happy relationship and to experience living with a married couple. My sister has told them she's happy with her life and doesn't want to change it, and I told my parents to leave my sister alone, that she's not wrong to do what she wants and feels is best for her, and that they need to mind their own business because she's a grown woman and can choose to do whatever she wants with her own life. They told me she clearly doesn't know what is or isn't healthy, but my sister chimed in and said that she worked on that in therapy, and she was told that there is no rule that she has to fall in love again. She said she just doesn't want to, and that everyone should be able to respect that. Now, when she said that, I agreed, and I backed her up by saying to our parents that it's my sister's life wife, and they will push her away if they don't stop. They told me I shouldn't be condoning this lifetime of widowhood, and my sister said that even if she did find someone else, she would still be Jake's widow, that she will always be his widow no matter what, because she lost him and they were married and they loved each other so much. My parents told me 6 times after this talk, which was more of a fight honestly, that I was wrong for backing my sister up and claiming that it's not their business. So I need to know, am I the jerk for standing by my sister? Because right now I am still very frustrated. No, your parents are being super obnoxious. They're literally getting involved in your sister's life and they're just completely disregarding all the things that she's been through. Like seriously, what is wrong with these people? Do they not know that their daughter is a widow and that she's gone through so much pain? Like these people have no business getting involved in this way, and I completely agree with the original poster. This is none of their business and they definitely should have stayed out of it. A crazy entitled mutual friend has been acting insane lately as he's become obsessed with me and is now claiming on Instagram that we are in a relationship. And right now this is all making me extremely nervous, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I've never met this guy before, but a few months ago he followed me on Instagram. I saw that we had 10 mutual friends, so I followed back, not thinking much of it. I always follow people back if we have mutual friends, so I didn't even ask my friends who he was, and I honestly just kind of forgot about it. Fast forward a few weeks, and I post a selfie and this guy likes it. Then he messages me and compliments me. Now I was polite and I said thank you, but I did not initiate any other conversation. I guess in an effort to continue the conversation, he asked me a few questions about my dog, with whom I've posted pictures of on my account, and I answered his questions because I thought they were harmless. What followed were a dozen unanswered messages of him introducing himself, talking about himself, and him saying other things that were really creepy. He would say to me, "You're gorgeous, you're such a princess, baby girl, oh yeah." Now I read them all, but I didn't answer because I was really weirded out. I asked my friends who he was, and they said he wasn't local. A few of them had met him at an event once when he was here, but none were actually close friends with him and didn't know too much about him. I figured not answering would make him go away since he could see that I read the messages, but it just encouraged him to continue. In the days following the initial messages, he sent similar messages about my appearance and how I have the sweetest personality, which I found odd since I had barely responded to him and he literally did not know me. He then replied to every single Instagram story highlight that I had, and we're talking like over 60 replies. So after that, I blocked him from seeing any future stories. He then messaged me daily, saying things like, "How's my dog doing? How's my boy doing today?" Now these are the few times I responded because I was like, what is going on? He is my dog, not yours. You literally don't even know him. Now my friends thought this was all just awkward, but overall pretty harmless since the messages weren't explicit or anything like that. So I felt bad fully blocking him. I figured my obvious disinterest would make him stop eventually, but the messages continued, and instead of reading them and not responding, I just didn't open them. This worked for a bit, but then he realized I was ignoring him and asked what he did wrong. I showed my other friends the messages, and my one guy friend was really concerned. He suggested that we post a selfie together just to make me look unavailable, so I unblocked the guy from my stories just so he could see it. Well, that didn't help, and it just made him escalate the number of messages that he was sending. He got angry and possessive, was saying things like, "I better not be sleeping with that guy," and basically saying really awful things to my friend. And I wasn't gonna ask my friend to do anything else since he does have a girlfriend. At this point, I just decided to be honest and tell him that his messages made me extremely uncomfortable, especially the possessive ones and the ones about my dog, since we literally don't even know each other. He apologized and then said I should come visit him, that he would pay for my flight, and that it would be a dream to hang out. But I said I am definitely not interested in that or even in hanging out. But he said, "Oh, that's okay. I understand that you're shy." And then he said he would come to me instead. I told him I wasn't interested in hanging out with him anywhere in the world and that I'm not interested in him or whatever else he thinks is going on here. And after that, I just straight up blocked him. And I think that was my mistake. He started following me on a new account right after and sent me several messages apologizing. He also followed some of my family members that I had tagged in pictures on my Instagram. I blocked him and privated my Instagram, but then he would come back with another account. He also found my other social media accounts. My friends still had him on their Instagrams, and now they've been showing me that he keeps posting pictures of me, and he's even implying that I sent them him to him personally, and he's doing this on his Instagram story and his post with comments about me being his girlfriend and that he can't wait to come spend the summer with me, and also posting pictures of my dogs while captioning it by saying it's our boy. So he must have saved a bunch of pictures that I had posted. My friends keep messaging him, but he won't take anything down, and I feel so freaked out and embarrassed because our other mutual friends are asking me if it's all true. I know he doesn't know exactly where I live, but I still worry about him coming here, and he knows some of the concerts I'm supposed to be attending because my friends posted about them and tagged me. I guess I just don't know how to navigate this. Does anyone have any suggestions? I don't know what else I could possibly do because I have never been in this situation ever before. This is actually insane behavior. Like seriously, there is so many things wrong with what's going on right now, it's not even funny. First of all, I think it might be time to report this guy to the police and to tell your friends to unfollow this guy. This guy is literally following your every move, and he's even gone as far as becoming obsessed with you. That is really scary behavior. This guy's pretending that you're his girlfriend. This guy's insane. So if I was in your shoes, I would not only report him to Instagram themselves, but I would also go to the police and be like, look, this thing is happening and it's honestly insane because what you're dealing with is not normal. This isn't some awkward or quirky thing that somebody's doing. This is literally somebody following your every move while also claiming you as his girlfriend, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for uninviting my brother-in-law from my son's graduation party, all because he is very vocal about disagreeing with my son's choice of college he's gonna go to? Here's what happened. Okay, so my son is graduating high school in 2 weeks. I personally had some turmoil at that age, so I didn't graduate and I had to get my GED a few years later, and I didn't go to college. So I am incredibly proud of him and all that he accomplished in school. He also got into an Ivy League college, which made me even more proud. Now, here's the problem. My wife and several family members, including her brother and father, all went to this same Ivy school. So my wife really pushed him to go there, and she did this at an unhealthy amount. She has always run a tight ship with his schooling over the years, while I've been a bit more lax, and said that if he is legitimately trying his hardest between school and extracurricular, as well as his social life, then all is okay, even if he struggles sometimes. Now that the payoff is here, my wife was insistent that he goes to this school. I've told him that he could go anywhere he wants and go into whatever field that he wants, or he could even take a gap year or go straight to work, basically making it clear that he can do whatever makes him happy. I mean, he got into an Ivy League school. He showed him he's good enough, so now we should let him follow his dreams. My son did 2 visits to this school and confided in me that he did not want to go there because of both the culture and he felt like the program he was interested in was better at another school. He was so scared to tell his mom to disappoint her, but the 3 of us sat down and talked about how he was feeling. Now, my wife was clearly disappointed, but accepted his decision. Although we did get into an argument about a week later about how he might regret this years from now. Once the news broke that he would not be going to the Ivy League school, my wife's family expressed their disagreement with the decision, but I laid down the law with how this was his choice and he's still going to an excellent school and he's pursuing his passion. So I will not tolerate anybody bothering him or telling him that he's making the wrong choice. Now, most did not put up much of a fight, but my wife's brother is being a real jerk about it. All 3 times that we've seen him in the past 2 months, ever since this all started, he has made comments to my son about how the Ivy League school is much better and all this other stuff. I yelled at him the last time when I saw it, and he just gave me this half-hearted apology. Well, like I said, his graduation is in 2 weeks, and his party with family and friends will be a few days after that. My son told me privately that he does not want his uncle to be there because he is uncomfortable around him and doesn't want to feel that way at his party. So I said, okay, no problem. I then texted my brother-in-law that he needs to sit the party out because he is making my son feel bad for his choices. And as you might be expecting, I am now under fire from my wife's family. Everyone's mad that I'm excluding him from celebrating my son's accomplishment and that my son can toughen up and whatnot. And my wife is mad that I went over her head. I felt like my wife would not be willing to cut out her brother, so I made the decision myself. I can't accept partial blame for going over her head, but I have no regrets otherwise. So honestly, am I the jerk in the situation? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, it's really a shame how the extended family is acting towards your son. They're trying to make it sound like, oh yeah, this is the worst decision decision you could ever make, and how he's gonna regret this years down the line. But in reality, like, is he really gonna regret going to the right college for the program he wants to go into? Like, if I was in that kid's shoes, I would want to go to the school that has the better program. And just because a school is Ivy League doesn't mean it's the best in the world at what it does. There very easily could be better programs at different colleges. And it sounds like the son in this story absolutely found exactly where they want to go. Like, why wouldn't people be more excited about that? Because it sounds like they just want him to go to the Ivy League school simply because it's an Ivy League school. Also, how is your wife not seeing that her brother's being really toxic to her son? He's making this big deal about him not going to this stupid school, and he's making things really awkward for this kid. Like, you would think she would back up her kid in this moment and be like, wait a second, okay, this is going just a little bit too far. And yes, I think you really should have had a conversation with your wife before uninviting the brother-in-law, but I personally think that you were completely justified to cut him off and tell him that he can't show up because of the way he was acting. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that they need to find an alternative solution for long-term care for my disabled siblings because I refuse to be that solution? Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old male and I have two older siblings who were both born with severe disabilities. Their disabilities are related to an inheritable gene that both my parents were carriers of, which is why the both of them have these disabilities. And they had me so that their disabled children would have someone to take care of them when they were gone. And it seriously was a gamble. I could have been disabled just like my siblings, and I had an even higher chance of also being a carrier of the gene. But my parents did not look into that. They initially planned to adopt, but they were rejected because of my siblings being disabled, and it was decided that they could not adequately care for another child on top of them. So they gave in and had me. Once they knew I wasn't disabled at birth, they no longer cared about my future because in their minds it was set in stone. I was raised to take over the care of both of my siblings. I was taught what to do, how to do it, and my parents interfered with my success. They'd pull me out of school enough times to cause trouble, but timed it just right to throw me off and leave me just a little bit behind at school. Their aim was for me to do badly enough to either drop out or not graduate high school, so then I wouldn't leave for college. But I worked my butt off as best as I could. My grades were not the best when I graduated, but they were the best that they could be given the circumstances. I actually only learned about my risk of being a carrier in my final 2 months of high school. My parents didn't care because they never planned for me to marry or have kids. Because again, I was supposed to be a caregiver the rest of my life. Well, I moved out of my parents' house after high school and I'm in college now, and my parents absolutely hate it. I am mostly estranged and have not told them yet, but I got checked for the gene because I always wanted kids, but I knew I didn't want to risk having children with the same disabilities as my siblings. Well, I found out that I'm not a carrier, which is super rare but also such a relief, but it still made me more angry at my parents for not caring. They leave voicemails pretty frequently, shaming me for going to college and moving away and not supporting them or my siblings. They talked about how out of practice I will be, so I decided to call them, and over the phone I told them I was not coming back and that they need to find an alternative solution for long-term care for my siblings because I will not be that solution. I won't sacrifice the rest of my life to care for them. Well, my parents told me that was disgusting to say, and I should love my siblings more than enough to care for them, especially when they are the highest risk adults. So am I the jerk for saying what I did to my parents? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Your parents are insane for trying to set you up like that and force you to take care of your siblings like that. Like, seriously, what is going on right now? They would intentionally pull you out of school just to make sure you're behind. They try to sabotage you ever going to college. And now when you finally call back and say, yeah, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life, you're gonna have to figure that out. They try to guilt trip you and be like, wow, this is family. You have to help them. You should love your siblings. Like, yeah, I love them, but I don't love the way you treated me. The fact that they had a kid simply because they wanted a caregiver for the rest of the adult children's lives, like, that is insane behavior, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I think if I was in your shoes, I would probably just completely block them. I would straight up move on with my life, and I would never allow them to have any room in my life ever again, because these people sound incredibly toxic. Am I the jerk for refusing to put up with my entitled sister's behavior any longer? Because after being treated so poorly for so many years, I've decided that enough is enough, and now I'm refusing to put up with her garbage for another second. Here's what happened. So both me and my sister are currently college students who are back at home for a few weeks until we can move into our respective summer places. Now, I dread having to be around her at all, as she can be fine over the phone, but in person, it's a completely different story. When we were children, she was diagnosed with a severe life-threatening illness and was pretty close to passing away. She spent a long time in the hospital, undergoing various treatments before being able to come home. I know this isn't her fault, but as she's gotten older, it's become clear that she has a sense of entitlement from it. Because she was my parents' youngest child and incredibly sick, she got and now gets anything she wanted. I mean, she even got my dad to buy her own car, despite her being the youngest out of all of their children. She gets new phones and technology whenever she asks for it. She gets her hair and nails and tanning all done whenever she wants, and it has to be with very specific people, otherwise it's a problem. She even calls herself the princess of our family, and this is very obvious to anyone who knows my family at all. What drives me crazy is that she seems to think that my stuff is her own. I have more than siblings than just her, and understand that siblings take care of each other's stuff all the time, but what I get upset about is the fact that my sister has no limits. If she likes it, it's hers, even if it was made for and gifted to me. I don't know if she just likes getting me upset, or if she actually just wants things she has no use for, but I genuinely think she just likes seeing me sad, because the more I think about it, the more I think it's true. She used to like screaming at me and berated me before my doctor's appointments over my eating disorders, all because she didn't want to drive me there and drop me off. Apparently, it was just too inconvenient for her. I really think seeing me cry makes her want to scream at me. Now, honestly, all of this is fine. It's kind of like whatever, you know? I always told myself that I'll move out and I won't have to deal with her, but this week has completely changed. Now, for reference, I'm a lesbian, and I'm in a relationship with this really awesome girl who I just adore, who also, by the way, cannot stand my sister. Now, my sister is a religious Christian and has never been directly homophobic to my face, but she does like to make jokes, especially if they include telling everyone that she can very loudly about how much of a lesbian I am. But this week, though, she decided that using a slur directly to my face would be funny. She refuses to talk to me most of the time, so I went to my mom and I told her that she needed to talk to my sister. I can handle a lot, but I feel as though I'm being pushed to my limit. My parents have apologized to me multiple times for my sister's behavior over the years and told me that they speak with her about everything, but they nor my sister ever seem to change, even when I can't get through the conversation without crying over how frustrated I am. But now I have decided to stop trying to be nice to my sister. Every time she decides to scream at me, tell me how awful I am, make her dumb jokes, or anything else that she does, she will not be met with her nice big sister anymore. I am done just sitting here silently and taking it. Unfortunately, my choice of words towards my sister has made my family quite angry with me. They tell me that I'm overreacting and that I just need to deal with her. We'll both be out of our parents' house soon, so I honestly need to know, am I the jerk for refusing to put up with my little sister any longer? Because right now I am so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. Your sister's being obnoxious on purpose because she's been enabled her entire life to act this way. Her parents are basically like, no, don't be mad at her, you just gotta deal with it like the rest of us. That's what they're actually saying, because they've been conditioned to do the same thing. The only reason they don't want you to go against the grain is because that would cause problems for them. And it's so frustrating because you can see the truth right in front of you, but not only does your little sister know that she can get away with saying these awful things, but also everybody else around you is just gonna sit there and be like, wow, what's the problem here? Like, are you kidding me right now? The problem is the little sister acting like an idiot. And you know what? I think you have it right. You're gonna be out of there soon. But in my opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, you know what? I'm gonna stop being nice. Like, everybody has their limit. I don't care who you are. Everyone's got a point where they simply can't take it any longer. So in my opinion, I think the way you're going about doing this is perfect. This is exactly what I would do. If someone's gonna treat me like garbage repeatedly and always say these horrible things and treat me like I just don't matter, then you know what? I'm gonna believe that the way they're treating me really is how they feel about me, and I'm then gonna drop them out of my life completely. Because not you or anybody deserves to be treated that way, and you should not be expected to put up with her toxic behavior for another second. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I think your parents are idiots for basically encouraging this behavior, because this truly is completely unacceptable. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for getting mad at a battery store after they superglued my Pokemon game shut while also giving me the wrong battery? Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a couple of years ago, and it honestly still makes my blood boil when I think about it. So I had 2 copies of Pokemon Ruby in Japanese, but both of them had dead batteries. So I go to a battery store that used to replace my batteries a decade ago for pretty cheap, and I went back for my 2 games, expecting around the same price, maybe just slightly higher of a price at around $5 a battery. Well, I speak to an employee, and he told me that they can replace the batteries, but they won't know the price. And so I thought, okay, no problem, it shouldn't be that much, right? So I hand them the games. And almost a week later, I had a friend pick it up for me while I was at work, and that's when I found out that it was for $40. I was very shocked and angry, but I thought to myself, okay, whatever, deciding to just go ahead and pay for it. After my friend dropped the games off to me at work, she said they glued the game shut since they couldn't properly seal it, and I was floored. I was so livid that they would glue my game shut. So I later called them asking why they would glue my games, and they explained that they couldn't seal it. So I asked to speak to a manager because of how incredibly disrespectful they were to glue my property shut. I spoke to a manager and we eventually hung up, and I waited a couple of days to hear back. Now, my other friend said he had some glue gun to remove the glue, and after he removed it, he noted they put the wrong battery in. I told the guy the specific battery that they needed, and they ended up putting in a slightly bigger battery. A couple days later, I called back, and I started going off on the manager because I felt like I needed to assert myself, and the manager just told me to calm down and that he was talking to me calmly, so I forced myself to calm down. I told him point blank, they put the wrong battery in, and that's why it wouldn't shut, and it was disrespectful that they superglued my games. They offered to replace it with a proper battery or give me a refund, and I asked for a refund because I didn't want them touching my games ever again. So after I called corporate, I was eventually issued a refund and got to keep the battery. The good part about this whole ordeal is that a friend of a friend was able to lower the battery more and told me that it is a longer lasting battery, and now the game shuts better. I was told that I should write a review, but I decided not to, but part of me really wants to. With this whole ordeal out of the way, I will never again go to that battery store to replace batteries ever again, because that place clearly does not know what they're doing. Yeah, that's really unfortunate that they basically destroyed your game. Like, first of all, you don't even have the right battery fitting into the compartment, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure that's very obvious that it won't fit in there properly, but also they decide to put glue in the cartridge just to close it. Like, seriously, that's so uncalled for. Isn't there like a very specific screw that goes in and out the back of it? Why on earth would they put glue in there? Or better yet, why didn't they just call the client and be like, sorry, we can't fix this? Glue is literally just gonna make it all worse. So seriously, good for you for getting a refund, because these people very clearly did not know what they were doing. My entitled crazy friend ruined our vacation to France by faking multiple mental illnesses just to try and get her way. And right now, after all is said and done, I am completely blown away by her entitlement, as well as the way that she treated me during this trip. Here's what happened. Okay, for the sake of the story, I'm gonna call my friend Elizabeth. Elizabeth is not her real name. I've known Elizabeth, who's 23 years old, for the past 2 years, going on 3. Because we live in the same European country, one with good public transportation, we are able to visit each other often, maybe once or twice a month without breaking the bank. And I've never had any major issues with her. Occasionally, she would snap at me for being a few minutes late to events, which is fine, but never like this. Now, the thing about Elizabeth is that she is a serial dater. This woman has a new boyfriend every 1 to 3 months. I am all for women living their own lives, but my God, she would almost always call me after a breakup, crying to me about how her ex was awful to her and how there were no good men in the world anymore. I was there for her, I was sympathetic, I thought she simply got dealt a bad hand when it came to men, but I've recently come to the realization that she was the problem the entire time. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, and she just got out of another relationship, and naturally she was devastated and wanted to take her mind off of things. I suggested planning a mini weekend vacation to France, meaning that this would be our first vacation together. She was overjoyed and took me up on the offer. We were able to find a cheap hotel in a very well-known city, and one of my friends, who we will call Mary, also not her real name, was able to come along with us. So Mary, Elizabeth, and I took off to France. The first day was lovely, just absolutely lovely. The weather and the people and the food and the transportation were all top tier. Elizabeth then told me that she had plans for us the whole next day, from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. And I thought to myself, that's great. At around 8 o'clock p.m. after dinner, I told her that we should head back so that we can rest up for tomorrow. But Elizabeth just didn't like that. She said that she really wanted to go clubbing. So I thought to myself, okay, okay, cool. I told her that we could go, but I would rather not stay out too late because I'm someone who needs my 8 to 9 hours of sleep, especially before going on an all-day outing. And when I said that, she was cool with it. So we go to a bar and then leave to the club at 11 o'clock p.m. To spare you the details, the club was great. Mary, Elizabeth, and myself are big on dancing, so we were having a blast. It was about 1:30 in the morning when I told Elizabeth that we should start heading home, but she said to me, "No, I want to party." So I said to her, "Yeah, girl, me too. But if you want to participate in the morning activities, I need to go home." She sighed and then begged me for just another hour. Well, this hour turned into 3 in the morning, and when I asked to go home again, she started tearing up and said to me that she needed this night out after her breakup. So we ended up staying until 6 in the morning. The bouncer had to clear us out because we were the only ones on the dance floor. She told Mary and I that the bouncer was awful for kicking us out because according to her, technically the club closes at 6:15 and not at 6. She also added by saying, "The bouncer probably has nothing better to do and should be cheated on by his wife." I asked her what her reasoning was behind saying that, and she says, "Oh, I mean, he obviously has issues if he doesn't want to see people happy, so he should also be unhappy." And when she said this, she was absolutely serious, by the way. She was that upset that we got kicked out 15 minutes early. Well, we arrive at the hotel at 6:40, and just as we are about to go in, Elizabeth says that she's hungry. I tell her that I'm heading inside and that she can eat with Mary, but again, Elizabeth doesn't like that. She pouted and said to me, "It would really mean a lot to me if you did something as small as eat with me." So, of course, I go to McDonald's with her. The line was super long, and we didn't get served until about 7:20 in the morning. The whole time in the line, she was telling us about her ex-boyfriends and how they all said she was too much to handle and how they were awful for saying that because apparently all women have emotions that men need to understand and they always refuse to educate themselves. And I honestly laughed internally. I thought to myself, yeah, okay, Elizabeth. We eat and arrive at the hotel at around 7:40, and Elizabeth actually said that she's going to set an alarm for 9:30 in the morning. Also, we don't miss breakfast at the hotel. I told her that I didn't want to eat breakfast and I would rather sleep in. Thankfully, Elizabeth didn't say anything and we all just fell asleep. Well, sure enough, just like clockwork, her alarm goes off at 9:30 and she tells Mary and I to wake up and get ready for food. But when she did that, I just said no. I want to sleep for a little bit longer as I didn't get much sleep at all. She then turns to me and exclaims, "You're ruining this vacation. Seriously, it's just breakfast." So I respond back by saying, "Yeah, it's just breakfast. I don't need to eat. I'll eat later." Elizabeth then becomes really quiet and then leaves the hotel room for breakfast. Mary joins her and I just close my eyes to go back to sleep and they return at about 10 o'clock. When they return, Elizabeth is silent. I ask when we're going to leave the hotel to get our day started. She says to me, "Well, you're already ruining it, so I don't know." At about this time, I'm pretty fed up with her. So I say to her, "Okay," and then I go back to sleep. Elizabeth and Mary ended up sleeping until 1 o'clock p.m. and I got up a little bit earlier than them to get ready. Well, they take 2 hours to get ready, so we don't even end up leaving until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, mind you, the entire time Elizabeth isn't speaking to Mary or myself. Mary asked her what's going on, and I just sat there and I was like, "Girl, I have no idea." We thought it would be great to start our day thrifting and then heading to a cheap cafe for lunch. When we arrive at the thrift store, Elizabeth sits on the floor and stares at her feet. I ask her what's wrong, and she replies by saying, "It's just that you and Mary are disrespecting my time and the day is ruined. We have no time to do things that I planned. I'm also in a lot of pain due to my illness." When she said that, I apologized and I asked her what her illness was because this is the first time I'm hearing anything about it. She said to me, "You know, I'm just generally mentally ill and sometimes it gets worse." I apologize again and I say to her, "Elizabeth, I'm really sorry. I didn't know you were diagnosed with something. What can I do to help you out?" She then said to me, "Oh, I'm not officially diagnosed, but I know I have OCD and multiple personality disorder. I've been going to a new therapist every other week, but I haven't found one that will give me medication. They're all old and they don't understand my issues. Oh God, I'm so tired and I have a headache. I want to eat some food." Well, I called Mary over and I told her that we're going to the cafe a little earlier than planned. We reached the cafe and I purchased 2 coffees as a treat for the girls, one for Mary and one for Elizabeth. As a side note, I don't drink coffee. Elizabeth glared at me and said, "You didn't even ask what I wanted. You just bought me some coffee. Are you being serious right now?" After she said that, I apologized and offered to get her some tea or some water, but she just rolled her eyes and went to sit at a table. Mary was extremely stressed distressed and told me that she didn't know how to help Elizabeth and asked me what to do. But I just looked at her and I shook my head because seriously, I had no idea myself. The day goes on and Elizabeth is mostly unresponsive, aside from her complaining about Mary. Now, here's the thing. Mary has done nothing wrong this entire trip. Admittedly, she likes to stand at attractions for just a little bit too long, but we're on vacation, and it really isn't a big deal if you want to stare at the Eiffel Tower for 30 minutes rather than just walk by it, which Elizabeth wanted to do. In fact, Elizabeth, whenever Mary would leave to use the restroom, would latch onto me and start saying, "Oh my god, she is holding us back. I'm so mad at her. Why is she taking forever? It's just the stupid Eiffel Tower." I told her that we're on vacation and we should accommodate everyone's wishes within reason. Her response to that was pouting and going back to being quiet. Now, the deal breaker though was what happened between Mary and Elizabeth. Mary was trying so hard to be tolerant of Elizabeth and her mental issues, but this is the single thing that just completely broke it. Mary wanted to get cash out of an ATM, and the ATM itself was maybe about a 5-minute walk away from an attraction that Elizabeth wanted to see. Well, Elizabeth started to argue with Mary that we didn't need cash and that it was going to take up too much time from their trip. Yes, you heard that right. The 5-minute walk to the ATM was too much of a walk. Well, Mary responded by saying, "Okay, but I want cash, so I'm going to go get some cash. You can come with me or you can keep acting like a baby. Not everyone around here is going to give you the princess treatment." Well, as you can probably imagine, Elizabeth was very unhappy with that. She actually turned to me to look for help, but I just shrugged my shoulders and said, I mean, it is a 5-minute walk. Now, this was at around 6 o'clock p.m., and soon after, we headed to a restaurant for dinner. The entire time, Elizabeth didn't say a word. She pointed at the menu items instead of saying what she wanted to the waiter, and during the middle of the meal, Elizabeth burst into tears. Mary and I tried to cheer her up by offering to buy dessert and maybe go to a spa afterwards, but Elizabeth wasn't having it. She just returned to being quiet while we finished our meals. On the way back to the hotel, she said, "I'm sorry, that was one of my multiple personalities. I can't control myself when that happens. You two have given me so much stress today. I couldn't help but let my personalities out." She then says to me, "This is all very triggering for me because my ex-boyfriend from 3 years ago didn't understand how to deal with my mental issues, and it looks like you two don't know how to deal with them either. You need to better educate yourself about mental illnesses because you don't know which one of your friends or coworkers have them." Well, when she said that, Mary and I just looked at each other with wide eyes. Like seriously, how do we respond to that? We arrive at the hotel and Elizabeth and Mary are dead quiet. They're just scrolling on their phones. I hear Elizabeth sniffling every now and then, trying to hold back her tears. And both of them are texting me, talking garbage about each other. Elizabeth was complaining about Mary, and Mary was rightfully so complaining about Elizabeth. And this literally went on for 2 hours. I finally say, "Okay guys, so what are we doing tonight?" And both of them let out a sigh and turn in the opposite direction of me. So as you can probably guess, we didn't go out. At around 10 o'clock p.m., they decided to give it a go in talking it out in front of me. Both of them expressed how much pressure they were feeling throughout the trip, and eventually they made up, but by then it was too late to get ready because the bar we wanted to go to closed within an hour. On the way back home, we hop in a car from a carpooling app. The guy picked us up at a specific location and was set to drop us off at a specific location. Well, Elizabeth thought that the drop-off location was too far away from her home, so she told me to tell the driver to drop us off directly at her house. But I told her no, the driver is only supposed to drop us off at the drop-off location on the app, and if we were to drive to her house, it would be an extra 50 minutes just to drive there. Well, as you can probably guess, Elizabeth became quiet again, and after an hour in the car, she texted me and said, "You're being a pushover. You have to stand up for yourself in situations like this. It is very unfair for him to drop us off so far away, especially from my home. You need to speak up." Now, when she said this, I of course replied by saying, "No thank you. We agreed on a drop-off location, and it would be unfair to change it at the last minute." Now, as you can probably guess, she didn't speak to me after arriving home. Now, at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I've never met someone so difficult to be with ever. I mean, where should I go from here? Should I confront her about her behavior, or should I do something else? What should I do? Okay, this is the funniest thing I've ever read in my life because Elizabeth is absolutely out of her mind. Like, dude, she faked a mental illness just so she could try and get her way. She ruined this trip by being so entitled and was complaining anytime she didn't get her way. Like, literally, nothing was ever good enough. Like, why are you even friends with this lady in the first place? This does not sound like a good friend. If anything, this sounds like a very selfish person who will literally say or do anything to try and get her way. So if I was in your shoes, I would drop her like a ton of bricks. I would say, no, we are no longer friends and I am never spending time with you ever again. Like, why would you want to be friends with someone like that? She is very clearly obnoxious to be around. She is very high strung and she clearly has no wiggle room for anything in her life. Like, that sounds absolutely miserable and I really think that you can find better friends. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my husband's parents and sister to not use me in their sick and twisted scheme to erase my husband's late wife? Because right now, they're saying that I overreacted, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm married to a widower. We've been married for 4 years, together for 6, and we've known each other for 8 years. We met at a grief support group as I lost my sister to cancer around the same time that he lost his late wife. We bonded and supported each other, and our relationship happened slowly over the 2 years of being friends. Now, one thing I have always known is that his love for his late wife has never faded. In fact, he never wants it to fade. He misses her every single day, and so do his children. He struggled with the idea of finding someone else, not least of all because his family started pushing 13 months after his loss. In time, he wanted this himself, and we fell in love. But I have always known that there would be no us without his loss. I was never jealous or insecure of that. I mean, I love his love for his late wife. It tells me how amazing he is as a person. It's also good for his kids to see the love he still holds for their mom. My sister's widower remarried after 6 months and has erased my sister with their children. He stopped me having a relationship with them as well, and I absolutely hate it. The kids being good with us was the most important thing to us when we became something more. The only condition they had to their support was their mom. They didn't want her to be forgotten. They didn't want my husband to stop talking about her or for her photos to disappear from the house. Now, some did come down, but they're still in the house, just not on the walls, and there are still photos of her around. And you know what? It works. I tell my daughter, who's 2 years old, and I will tell my son that I'm pregnant with, that she's their big sibling's mom and daddy's late wife. They will know who she is and what she means to our family. But my husband's parents and sister don't like that my husband's late wife is still very much loved and kept alive. Simply put, they just didn't like her. They didn't approve of my husband getting married at 20 and loving someone who came from a very unfavorable family, and they judged her very harshly for it. They think that I'm far better and expect me to replace her. They were especially horrified that my husband keeps photos of her in his wallet and on his desk at work, and there are also photos of me in both. Recently, they brought this up with me and told me that I should forbid my husband from doing this. They said it is horribly disrespectful to me and it has prevented my husband's teenage children from truly embracing me as their mother. They told me to march right up to him in front of everyone and tell him that he cannot keep the photos of his dead wife anymore. It bothered me so much that they were so callous about it. So I told them straight up to not use me in their sick and twisted scheme so that they could erase my husband's late wife, because I wanted no part of it. They focused on the sick and twisted aspect, and they are now saying that I called them sick and twisted and accused me of overreacting to their support. My husband was furious with them when he heard about this and told them to be thankful that his kids didn't hear about this. So honestly, am I the jerk for saying what I did to my husband's family? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk, because what they were planning to do really was sick and twisted. Like, their plan to get rid of his late wife and try to pretend like she didn't exist is just so disgusting. Like, seriously, that is so messed up. And if this really is coming from some kind of grudge they had with his late wife, where they're basing this off of a decision that was made years ago, like, that is so disturbing and so uncalled for. And it really shows how much they just don't care about their son. They would rather make him miserable by trying to erase his late wife from his life instead of embracing what's happening right now and be okay with him still loving his late wife. Because the fact that they actually tried to do this is so uncalled for. And if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would ever put up with that. A woman calls my animals pests in my own home, even though I'm trying to sell her daughter one of my snakes. And I'm just so glad to have that lady out of my house because her attitude the entire time was so obnoxious. Here's what happened. Okay, I will never understand calling someone's pet disgusting just because you don't like that type of animal, let alone in someone else's home. If that person has such a gross animal as a pet, they probably love that animal as much as they would a cat or a dog. So for a bit of context, I live in an apartment complex on the 9th floor, and I have a ton of animals, including pet rats, which I bred, and it's all as a hobby that I'm very passionate about. I also own a bunch of reptiles, which is an odd combination, but I love both equally. And I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is immediately clear if you come in that they are well taken care of. So I was looking to rehome one of my ball pythons, and when rehoming a reptile, I make sure they go to a good home where they will have as much space and expertise as here, if not more. So I found someone with a lot of experience as well as a ton of space for this little guy. And this is where the story unfolds. I welcomed the new owner into my home to pick up the snake, who was a very nice young woman. She was together with an older woman who I assume was her mother, and her mother immediately went off about how terrified she was of heights, which is not an issue, of course. I am also scared of heights, and a lot of visitors say that they don't like how high up my house is. I tried to say that I was also scared when I first moved in, but she very loudly spoke over me and didn't even look at me. So I didn't really think much of it, and then I just moved on. I then opened the door to my living room, and the first thing this woman sees is some of my rats. She then loudly exclaims, "This house is also filled with vermin." Now, I don't live in an English-speaking country, so this is not exactly what she said, but more or less it is the same. Her tone the whole time was just loud and mean and very judgmental. As someone with rats and snakes for pets, I am used to people giving me reactions like this. So instead of getting mad, I tried to tell her I love these animals a lot. She once again didn't listen and just spoke over me. And this is where normally I would just kick her out, but the daughter seemed very ashamed of her mother, and I also just wanted this sale to happen. I mean, it's not her fault after all. Also, considering the mother also owned reptiles, I thought it was weird that she would respond this way, since she probably knows what it's like when people say this about her own pets. Anyways, I just ignore the woman, and I talk with the daughter, who was super sweet the entire time. My guess is that she doesn't bother telling her mom to stop, because it probably just makes things worse. I also mentioned how I was saving up for a service dog, but the mom couldn't help but say, "In this house?" The daughter then scoffed at her comment, and I guess she said that because I live in an apartment, but I am always at home and I have all the time in the world to walk my dog. Or maybe because my living room was a bit messy when this happened. Either way, it's not for her to judge on so little information. Both me and my boyfriend felt like slamming the door in her face after that comment, and I think if she made one more comment, I probably would have. I honestly just felt bad for the daughter. Luckily, they left after that, and I got some nice pictures of the snake in his now home, and I am so happy that he went to a good home. But next time, I think the mom should definitely stay in the car. Yeah, that's a really rude thing to say in somebody else's house. You don't just walk in and be like, "Oh my god, there's vermin everywhere. This place is a mess," as well as just act rude and really loud and obnoxious the entire time. It's like you do know you're a guest in someone else's property, right? Because the least she could have done is be on her best behavior and try to be respectful in someone else's home. An entitled crazy Karen blocks me from cycling on a bike path as she claims that I shouldn't be on this trail, but instead should be on the road. And despite the signs on the pavement and on the road blatantly stating that she's in the wrong, this entitled Karen refuses to allow me to pass. Here's what happened. So a couple of weeks ago, I was cycling to a driving lesson. The road to the testing center has a bike lane on the pavement, and there are signs all down the road indicating this, as well as bikes painted on the ground, just to really emphasize that the pavement is also a bike lane. So I'm cycling along, and I'm not going fast as there are teenagers walking around, and they're going to and from the college further up, and if they happen to be in my way, I just quickly ring my bell and then they move over with no issue. I get near the test center and there's a lady with 3 dogs. Now, as I've always been taught, I came to a stop because animals are unpredictable, and it wasn't too wide of a path, so I didn't want to risk them jumping out in front of my wheel. Now, at this point, I should have just gotten off my bike and walked past them, but this lady was still walking, so I thought, okay, maybe it would be okay to just stop and let her walk past. But my god, was I completely wrong. She had no control of these dogs, and she was just letting them walk wherever they liked. In fact, one of these dogs decided that they wanted to walk on the other side of my bike, which is literally away from where this lady and her other dogs are at. So now I'm just stuck. Well, this entitled Karen then decides that this is the perfect time to start arguing with me. She says to me, "Excuse me, but you would do better on the road." I look up at her and I say, "Oh no, it's okay. This is a cycling path." This entitled Karen then screams at me, "No, it has pedestrian priority." I try to tell her that it's also a cycling lane, but this lady cuts me off. She screams out, "Pedestrians have priority." And right then I said, well, I know that. That's why I stopped. But she screamed at me that I need to get off the road. Now, at this point, I was getting frustrated too, so I just screamed back and said, I am on the stupid cycling path. Now, also bear in mind, she is making no move to get her stupid dog out of my way, so I'm essentially just trapped there. The entitled Karen continues to scream at me, repeating over and over again that pedestrians have priority. But I just said to her, and I stopped my bike, lady, what more do you want? Now, at this point, her dog had finally moved away enough for me to cycle off, and as I'm leaving, this entitled Karen screams out, get off the road, this is pedestrians only. So I just told her to shut up as I cycled away. And trust me, I kept on cycling. I managed to still make my lesson on time, but I had to take about 5 minutes to calm down because I was literally shaking with anger and adrenaline. I mean, honestly, some people just want to go out of their way to shout at people. And unfortunately, it was my turn to be in the firing lane. But regardless, I hope I never have to deal with that entitled Karen ever again. It's so funny to me that people act like this, especially when they have all these signs all around them, as well as the pavement literally right below her, explicitly shouting at her that yes, this is a cycling lane as well. Like she's shaking and shouting that pedestrians take priority, but that's exactly what the guy did. He stopped cycling so that she could pass. Like seriously, what more did she possibly want? Like it really seemed like she just wanted to shout at somebody, and that is so obnoxious. So yeah, hopefully you don't have to deal with that lady ever again, because her attitude was completely unnecessary. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for defending my husband after my brother implied that my husband doesn't make any money? Because right now, my brother and his fiance are very mad at me, claiming that I embarrassed him in front of our parents. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I come from a family of white-collar career people. My dad owns his own business, and my mom is a pediatric surgeon. My older brother is a lawyer and loves to boast about how much money he makes. He is always buying new watches and expensive suits, and he also drives a Porsche and is engaged to who will be his third wife. I've always been more introverted than my brother, and I tend to fade into the background. I created and operate my own business, and I make a more than decent living. My husband is a master electrician, and he owns a very successful business. He makes more than 3 times what I do. We are a double income, no kids couple. However, we keep our income very low key, and we don't spend money like my brother does. My parents are aware of how much my husband makes because we paid for their 35th wedding anniversary getaway, and my dad saw the price tag. We were at Mother's Day on Sunday, and both my brother and I bought nice things for our mother as gifts. He bought her jewelry, and I got a certificate for several hand massages at a spa near the hospital that she works at. My mother thanked us, and my brother decided that it would be a good time to brag about how much the necklace cost. He then looked at my husband and jokingly said that my husband could never buy a necklace like the one he got for his mother, and how my husband could never afford anything simply because he was on an electrician's wage. He carried on like that until I had had enough of him insulting my partner, because my husband has worked way harder than my brother to get where he's at. I then yelled at my brother to shut up, and that my husband easily makes twice what he does, and that he should sit down and be more respectful. I told him that Mother's Day is about mom, not you, and those were my exact words. After my brother left, and soon after I snapped at him, I apologized to my mom, and we went on to have a wonderful dinner, where mom told my husband embarrassing stories about me when I was little. My husband thanked me for standing up for him, and my mom told me that she had a lovely night while we were on the phone yesterday, and told me that she used some of the money on the certificate to get her wrists and fingers massaged after a 10-hour surgery. She told me that she was very happy with my gift. Well, my brother's fiance sent me a tirade of messages, absolutely blasting me for embarrassing him in front of our parents and calling me a jerk. Now, I feel bad for causing drama, but I'm happy that I stood up for my husband. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk. If your brother didn't want to get embarrassed, then he should not have set himself up in the way that he did. Like, it's so funny that the fiance's calling in and being like, wow, why would you do that? You humiliated him in front of his parents. And it's like, lady, no, I didn't. He embarrassed himself. He was going in on the original poster's husband and being like, wow, you could never afford what I can afford. I'm so rich. Like, this guy was being a massive jerk. This is the classic case of not getting the full story while also getting a very jaded version of the story at that. I'm sure the brother came home and was like, wow, my sister embarrassed me in in front of everybody, but failed to mention how he was also basically calling the husband poor. Like, that is so inappropriate and honestly so unfair. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. Your brother was being a complete clown, and in my opinion, he absolutely deserved to be put in his place. A group of entitled jerks shut down a pool that they broke into by leaving broken beer bottles all over the pool, and as a result, it cost our resort thousands of dollars just to fix it. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, I work at a resort restaurant. Our resort has around 6 restaurants, with 3 of them also operating pool bars during the summer months. About 2 years ago or so, my coworker's husband, who we will call Dave, witnessed the before and after of a really bizarre situation that quite literally resulted in a pool and a bar getting shut down for the whole weekend. Dave worked in the engineering department for our resort and was given the job to do some maintenance on the pool before it opened in a few hours. As he walked in, tools in hand, he noticed a group of men and women in the pool. Now, them being there was beyond strange because the pool's gates were closed, so only select employees could access it, meaning that these people had jumped the fence to get in. He also noticed the closer he got to them that they were drinking beer from glass bottles, and the women were entirely topless. Dave would then tell my coworker that a few of these guys were looking at these women like hungry wolves, which was really gross to think about. They were also all visibly drunk and very loud. Dave walked up to the group and told them that they weren't supposed to be there and that they needed to leave, but they just kind of brushed him off and said it was fine. Well, Dave didn't want to start any trouble, so he just said that they need to leave before the pool opened and staff showed up, and then he walked away to do what he was supposed to do in the main building. And seriously, to this day, I don't understand why he didn't call security or someone right then and there. Now, I can't remember how long he was gone for, but when he came out, the group of people were gone. However, what was left behind were countless shards of shattered glass all around, as well as inside the pool itself. It was glass of all different colors littering the pool's floor and around the edges. Dave's theory was that the women probably got fed up with the men staring at them, and this resulted in bottles being thrown. They probably left right after that, most likely because even in their drunk states, they either realized that swimming in broken glass wasn't safe, or that they would be royally screwed if they got caught. Now, whether or not it was true, how else would so much glass end up in the pool? Dave immediately called security, and the police got involved since the broken glass was considered vandalism. Unfortunately, by this point, the entire group was long gone, and at the time, there was no functioning camera, so no suspects could be identified. I mean, no one even knew if they were guests at the resort or people who just lived nearby. So these people just basically got away with it. It took the resort an entire weekend to clean the pool, as it had to be drained, scrubbed from top to bottom, and then filled manually before it could be safely reopened for service again. It was supposed to be a really busy weekend, and this particular pool was a staple of the resort, meaning that this group cost our resort possibly thousands of dollars. Now, I actually didn't know about this story until the day afterwards. On the day of, I was supposed to work a shift at my pool, and unfortunately for me, not only did my bartender call in sick with no substitute, but I was also the only other employee scheduled that day. So I was completely on my own, and I had to deal with a much larger crowd as best as possible. I did have some bartending experience I learned from my coworkers, but I still struggled to keep up on my own, and we didn't have enough staff to spare that day. It was rough, but I made it through. However, ever since then, I've become very strict about glass being anywhere near my pool ever since. Also, on top of that, about a year after that, working cameras were installed at every pool. Aside from this incident, I think there were others that led to it being enforced, but still, it's nice to have just in case. Now, I know it should be obvious why shattered glass doesn't belong in an area where 90% of its inhabitants usually walk barefoot, but please, for the sake of everybody around you, don't ever bring glass into a pool. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Dave didn't call the cops or security of some kind, because seriously, those people had glass bottles around a pool. Like, that is a surefire way to get cut up immediately, because there is no good excuse for the way that group was acting. My entitled coworker says he's going to sue the company, all because he thinks it's unfair that I get to charge my electric car at work. And I've honestly never been more blown away by someone's stupidity in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so my 60-year-old coworker drives a huge truck. I recently took the plunge and got a mini electric SUV, and ever since then, he calls me the fridge driver, which is kind of funny, I'll give him that. Once, I forgot to charge at home and arrived at work with 22% battery. I noticed an outlet very close to my parking spot, so I took the charger to see if it was connected, and much to my surprise, it worked. I didn't want to get in trouble, so I emailed the facilities team asking for permission just in case, and they pretty much said, well, we don't really care, please don't email us. Now, my parking spot was very close to the entrance, and my entitled old coworker, we'll call him Jack for the sake of the story, that's not his real name, uses a cane and parks at the very end of the garage. In fact, I switched spots with him, and he's been very nice to me ever since. And trust me, this part's gonna be important later on. I charge my car twice a week on average, so I've been getting free mobility for about 6 months. Another coworker got an F-150 Lightning, and I was telling her over lunch that she could use my parking spot on the days that I'm not there. For reference, I only go to the office twice a week. And when I said this, my entitled coworker was also there too. I went to show her where the outlet was, and Jack decided to tag along. The whole time he said to me, hey, this used to be my parking spot. My friend was low on battery and my car was already full, so we switched spots right there. Jack was making jokes that she drives a more manly car than I do, and he asked questions about how much money we were saving. I said about $80 a week, and my coworker said she used to spend about $100 a week, and this will be a life changer. Now, what followed next is probably the weirdest man-child behavior I've ever seen in my life. For starters, he emailed pictures of both cars charging to my supervisor, asking if this was allowed, and when I was contacted, I showed my supervisor the email from the facilities team. Eventually, Jack demanded to have his spot back. My manager checked with me if I was okay sharing the spot, also Jack could charge his car, which I knew was a complete lie, so I told him that he drives a Dodge Ram, it's not electric. He then proceeded to ask for a $5,000 a year gift card just so he could go to the gas station so he could commute to work for free. Eventually, he filed a complaint with HR stating that he's being oppressed all because he doesn't have an electric car. He also goes daily to take pictures of whichever car is charging in the spot, and he stopped talking to us altogether, not even saying good morning. And to top it all off, he said he was going to sue the company after HR rejected his claim. So overall, I'm honestly sick of Jack, and I hope he never bothers me ever again. Yeah, I'm gonna be brutally honest and say that Jack sounds like an idiot. Like, this guy's seriously trying to act like the world is against him, all because he doesn't have an electric car. Like, seriously, what is wrong with this guy? Like, the original poster is just trying to charge their car. This literally does not affect his life in the slightest. So yeah, I hope the original poster doesn't have to deal with Jack either, because this guy sounds like an absolute nightmare. Am I the jerk for telling my wife's family that they can't cook with us in our Airbnb simply because they bailed on our plan of getting an Airbnb as a group in the first place? Because right now they're calling me greedy and unreasonable, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife and I have 2 kids, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and my wife has 2 siblings. She has one brother who lives in California and a sister who's married with 3 kids all under 10 and both of her parents. We are pretty close with my wife's family. We spend a lot of time with them, and all the kids and cousins get along super well. So I think it's safe to say that I have a very good relationship with everybody. The brother is getting married later this summer in Southern California, and the rest of the family, including us, live in the Midwest, and we've planned a big 7-night family vacation down to SoCal for the wedding. So I proposed to the family, namely the 4 of us, my sister-in-law's family, and my wife's parents, to rent out a house for 7 nights while we will be in SoCal. Now, there were some really good reasons as to why we should do this. For starters, there would be more space for everybody instead of living out of a suitcase in a hotel for 7 nights. Also, we would have a kitchen available instead of eating out every single night. My son also has a severe anaphylactic allergy to nuts, so eating out can often be stressful for us as a family. Now, initially, everyone was on board. I estimated that renting a large enough house via Airbnb would be approximately $300 a night per family unit. So basically, $900 a night split 3 ways. Now, there are cheaper ones, but they would be too far from the wedding venue. Now, my sister-in-law and my in-laws learned very quickly that hotel rooms are available for approximately $150 a night. And since finding out about that, they've now bailed on the house idea and have reserved their own hotel rooms. But you know what? It's their money, and I understand that renting a house is a lot of money to pay above the hotel rates. So I honestly have no issue with them changing their mind. My wife and I still want to stay in a house, mainly for access to a full kitchen, so we decided to book an Airbnb. The smaller house will cost us about $350 a night, so we'll be spending about $350 more than planned. Now, we've booked the Airbnb, and the free cancellation period has now expired, meaning that we can't cancel without losing money. When my wife's family learned that we booked an Airbnb Airbnb, they said to us, "Oh great, we can come to your house and cook some food." But I said to them, no. If you wanted to cook, then you should have reserved a house with us and not make us pay the extra for accommodations with a kitchen and then try to take advantage of that. If you want to use the kitchen, cover the extra $50 a night that we have to pay, and then you can use it. Well, when I said that, they said I was being unreasonable and greedy. So honestly, am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Yeah, your extended family is being super toxic right now. You mean to tell me they waited until you bought the Airbnb just to then turn around and be like, "Oh yeah, can we come over to cook?" Like, no, you can't come over and cook. Are you kidding me right now? We spent so much money trying to get it set up and you guys straight up bailed to go to a hotel. Like, that's not fair in the slightest. So in my opinion, I think what you're asking is completely reasonable because I think your wife's family is acting super entitled. An entitled Karen screams at me at work after she makes a mistake when leaving a tip for our restaurant. She even screamed at me so much that I almost started crying. And I'm honestly so sick of dealing with entitled Karens like this. Here's what happened. Okay, so at the time I was 18 years old and I was working at a fast food place. I've only ever seen one of these specific places in my life, but I won't give away the name just in case. But just to give you the basic idea, its food is Italian, which means it's mostly pasta. Sure, we had pizza slices, breadsticks, and salads, but we mostly had pasta dishes. Now, I always worked the closing shift from 5 to 10, which really went from 5 to 11 with all the things that had to be done for closing. Now, I want to say that at about this point, it was around the middle of my shift, or maybe in the first half. I always worked up front, taking orders and running out food for tables. It was business as usual, and then a woman walked in. And yes, dear readers, this is the entitled Karen of the story in the wild. I welcomed her in with my typical, "Hi, welcome to our restaurant. What can I get for you?" She ordered her meal and things went well. I think the total was maybe $10 or around that range. I then rattled off the phrase that's been burned into my brain. I asked her, "Would you like to leave a tip?" Now, when I asked that, surprisingly, she said yes. There were no red flags yet, so I continued. I say to her, "Alrighty, press 1, 2, or 3 on the keypad, then press the green button after that." I watched as she pushed the buttons in that order. Now, the buttons correspond to different tip amounts. The number 1 was for $1, 2 was for $3, and 3 was for $5. So, since she pressed 3 as the final button, it meant that she gave a $5 tip. And after I gave her the receipt, this is where things get really messy. She inspected it intently and then started complaining about how much she had tipped. She said to me, "I am not giving you a $5 tip for a $10 purchase. I pay your salary and this is ridiculous." Now, I was trying to explain that she hadn't listened to what I had said, that I had said 1, 2, or 3, not 1, 2, and 3. Well, this back and forth continued, and some of my coworkers even came to defend me, saying that I have very clear instructions. Some more back and forth happened, and the manager was called to settle this dispute. Now, he was busy, so it would take him a minute or two, but during that time, this entitled Karen stared me directly in the eyes and said to me, "I don't like your awful attitude." I said to her, "Excuse me?" And I was obviously completely shocked. And being as shocked and angry as I was, I felt tears in my eyes because I cry when I'm really angry. Anyways, my manager finally got there and settled this issue. And this is definitely one of those situations that I will never forget. Honestly, I can't stand it when customers don't follow simple instructions, especially when it's on a screen and it's very simple. Like seriously, you shouldn't have to explain to her exactly what button to press. She should just be able to look at the screen and be like, "Okay, what do I want to do?" Like she's sitting there and acting like you somehow tricked her into pressing the wrong button. Also, the fact that she was projecting on you and saying to you, "Oh man, I don't like your bad attitude." Like seriously, lady, you're the only one here with a bad attitude. And I can also say I relate with the original poster because I've been there as well. I've been around customers who have been so nasty that they make me feel like absolute garbage, and they are literally the worst things in the world to deal with. Because seriously, this entitled Karen was completely out of line, and you did not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. An entitled couple make me cry at the restaurant I was working at as they screamed and shouted at me, all because their food wasn't ready on the busiest day of the year for us. But thankfully, my manager had my back as he came back at these people harder than I've ever seen anybody get put in their place in my life, because the way they acted was so unacceptable. And I'm just so glad that I have a manager who has my back. Here's what happened. Okay, so this all went down on Mother's Day. It's the busiest day of the year for my restaurant and many others. It is so busy that we will have numerous parties as well as countless floor tables. We are all assigned parties at the beginning of the shift and then expected to take the walk in the parties. And the entire morning there was a line to the door. Now, because this was Mother's Day, that line lasted literally all day long. I was in the weeds the entire shift, and it's a long shift for us. I mean, we will be there for at least 12 hours. I finish a 3-top with a $3 tip, a 6-top with a $5 tip, and then I finish a group of 9 that give me a great tip. Well, in comes a group of 6 people, so I take them. Then I have to take a group of 8 people behind them, and then 11 besides the 8. Now, this is fine and dandy, except the kitchen is really backed up. They had been behind since square one, and we have a lot of newbies working today. Well, I burst into tears because my 6-top was really passive aggressive and really wanted to get their food, but it had taken nearly 45 minutes for basic entrees. Now, I'm not angry with the cooks because they're cooking a lot of food all day long, but it is absolutely stressful regardless. I finally get them their food, and the guy at the table murmurs about a 3rd refill. The dude spilt his drink earlier, and his eyelids were barely open. He can't even speak above a mumble. Well, I guess prior to this jerk got angry and started to look around the restaurant for me, despite me telling him that it was insanely busy. And I've been in the kitchen 3 separate times to look for the food, but that the cooks were just completely swamped. Mind you, all of us are running circles, and we have more tables and customers than we can handle. The owner, who is in his 80s, we'll call him Bob for the sake of the story, was standing next to our busser, who we will call Frodo. Bob and Frodo are not their real names. Well, this big jerk comes out of the room, and Bob thinks he's looking for the bathroom. The big guy mumbles something, and Bob just laughs and says okay because he couldn't hear him. Bob then looks over to Frodo, and he's like, wait, what did he say? Well, Frodo was all like, Bob, he was cursing at you. He said, I'm not looking for the bathroom, I'm looking for my server. She absolutely sucks. So fast forward, and I get the salads out for the 8-top, and I'm about to take drinks to the 11-top, but I stop to make sure that these jerks are good. I walk up and I ask them, are you guys doing all right? Can I grab you anything? Well, one lady, who we will call the cheese lady, she said to me, yeah, you can grab the cheese I asked for 15 times, literally 15 minutes ago. Now, let's pause for a second. That's 1 cheese request per minute. So yeah, that's a lot of requests. Next, I don't need this lady being condescending. We servers have it rough on Mother's Day. It is not my intention to not bring you everything you ask for every 5 seconds. It's simply the fact that I'm waiting on multiple large tables, all of which are angry to oblivion because they waited in line for an hour only to then be seated and wait another hour for their food to come up. And also, when it comes to this stupid cheese lady, she would scream at me and be like, my God, he needs a refill. My food is cold. But like, as a side note, her food wasn't cold. I was crying when they finally handed it to me, and I legit waited until they had it in tears. So at this point, much like Mob and Mob Boss has his crazy meter, my crazy meter had hit the 100% jackpot of pure rage and adrenaline. I looked at her straight in her angry, boiling eyes, and I straight up said, ma'am, it's almost like it's the busiest day of the year. The cheese lady then said to me, you can get your stupid attitude out of here. She then starts cussing and shrieking, while also making indistinguishable shrieks of faux success at making a server cry. So I just start pouring tears as I do. I mean, I was so done, man. Legit worked my butt off to get 2 really crappy tips, and then get cussed out by someone who looks like she's never worked a day in her life. And I'm not trying to stereotype. I just mean that these people have clearly never worked food. Well, Frodo tells me what they said earlier and tells me to go tell Bob. I go to Bob and I tell them what they said and even what I said, and he says to me, wait right here, I'm gonna take care of it. So I hide out in the office wiping my face as I hear the mean table screaming at him from down the hall. Then Bob pulls up on the big jerk from earlier. Bob screams at this guy and says, were you born to be rude? The big jerk looks at him and says, are you kidding me? My wife is the one who spoke to her, not me. Bob then says, that doesn't matter. You don't treat our staff like that here. The cheese lady says, well, you didn't have to push me either. Now this was literally out of left field because Bob never even touched that lady. And Bob says as much when he says, I never laid a hand on you. And here's the thing, we had multiple gawkers and 2 bussers confirm that she was full of it. Eventually, they were then forced to leave, and Bob let me wait on his family, and they tipped me really nice, and I cried happy tears. Now, you might think this is the end of it, but trust me, it definitely wasn't. They ended up leaving a really annoying review on Google, so that inspired me to post my experience online. The owner and I were called hateful, and she is still mad about the cheese that she didn't get. It's my first bad review in the 2.5 years that I've worked here. Also, Bob comped the entire meal of the poor souls that had to sit next to them, and they said he did the right thing. So I hope that your Mother's Day wasn't as crazy as mine, because what I went through is something I hope I never go through ever again. Wow, the jerk and the cheese lady lady absolutely were so far out of line, it's not even funny. Like, who in their right mind would act like that over food on the busiest day of the year? Like, are they seriously gonna walk around and be like, wow, where's my food? And then not look up and be like, oh yeah, the restaurant is full of people. It's almost like they sat down for dinner and then they just completely forgot that they stood in line for an hour. People like this are so obnoxious and I just can't stand them, but at least you have a good manager who has your back. Bob sounds like an absolute powerhouse. He sounds like one of those owners who really does keep like a low profile, but when it comes time to stand up for his employees, he actually has a spine and does exactly that. He puts these customers in their place and he doesn't allow anybody to put his employees down. So truly, I'm sorry you went through that, and hopefully nothing like that ever happens to you ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I am so tired of old entitled jerks cutting in line, and after encountering it so many times in my life, I am simply amazed by how entitled someone actually can be. Here's what happened. Okay, so this has been a problem that my husband and I have encountered for years, but yesterday we experienced 2 incidents of it. We went to the farmer's market and I was standing in line to get some peaches. There's one lady ahead of me talking to the farmer, and suddenly this old entitled jerk walks up beside the lady in front of me, looks impatient, completely ignores me, and then butts in and just starts asking the farmer stupid questions. He's clearly about to slide in when the lady ahead of me leaves, and my husband and I both stare at him and make it very obvious that we know what he's doing. The lady ahead of me finishes her purchases and then leaves, and the entitled old jerk sees us looking at him and reluctantly barks and says, "Go ahead," and he says it in an irritated tone. Now, I said nothing and made my purchase while he hovered impatiently behind me, and last week, we were in the same line when an old entitled couple deliberately got in front of us in line. We laughed and said, "Really?" And they just completely ignored us. After the farmer's market, we decided to get brunch. We were in line to see the waitress put our name in for a table. Well, 3 old entitled women attempt to cut in line in front of us. A bystander sees what they were trying to do, and they loudly said, "Hey, are you guys in line for a table?" We say yes, and the old entitled jerks begrudgingly move behind us after they got called out. Now, these are just the most recent cases, but it happens all the time, and it's often very deliberate. We were at a cafe once when an old entitled woman pretended to be looking in the bakery cases and then rapidly cut in line in front of us. My husband politely told her where the line started, and she threw a fit and denied cutting line. And of course, naturally, an entitled employee, who I'm pretty sure was the owner, who was also the same age as this entitled old woman, came over and took her side, allowing her to stay where she was. Another instance is from a year ago, where I was in line at my coffee shop, and 2 very loud old entitled jerks walked in. They saw the line, they frowned, they whispered to each other, and then they crept up and pretended to be reading a newspaper on the counter. They then slid in front of me and ordered a bunch of stuff, asking a bunch of stupid questions. I mean, I just wanted a coffee. The teenage employer was too afraid to say anything, but I decided to do the same thing because they looked like the type that would go absolutely crazy and cry victim if I called out their actions. So is anyone else noticing this phenomenon? I mean, it drives me so insane. It's almost like they think they're above standing in line for things just like other people, and it honestly drives me nuts. Yeah, now that I think about it, I think there are moments where I've noticed this similar thing, and it really usually does come from the older crowd who act super entitled anytime they see a line. It's almost like they think they're above the line and that they shouldn't have to wait for anything. And obviously, this isn't a grand sweeping statement, but I have definitely seen this from older people much more than any other group of people. So no, the original poster is definitely not crazy, because I think this happens way more than any of us realize. Am I the jerk for telling my family to stop obsessing over my half-brother's decisions? Because after he left the family and rejected pretty much everybody, they are now absolutely obsessed with getting some kind of karma revenge against him so that he can feel the exact way that they felt when he left. Because honestly, their attitude is really obnoxious, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I have a half-brother who is in his mid to late 30s. I also have 2 older brothers who are 25 and 26. We don't have a relationship with our half-brother, who is my dad's child from his first wife. Dad was a widower, and my mom came into our lives 3.5 years after my brother's mom passed away. My half-brother never liked my mom, and according to my brothers, he was always super clear that mom would never mean anything to him, and he used to say some pretty nasty stuff to mom, which dad would never take well. In fact, their earliest memories are a lot of chaos and fights. I don't really remember living with him or seeing him, but what I do remember of of him wasn't pleasant, and I knew he did not want us for siblings. My family, both extended and my parents, always said that he would grow up and regret treating mom like garbage, that he would be a step-parent himself in the future, or becoming a parent would teach him some kind of lesson. Now, why they were so certain he would want to marry and have kids, I have no idea, but they were always so positive that he would end up as a step-parent and would end up with biological kids as well. Well, my brothers and I always just accepted that we were a 3-person sibling set and we were not a 4-person sibling set, and we never expected a relationship with him or his family. Well, I guess some of the extended family know he's married now, and he has 3 kids of his own, but he isn't a step-parent. And this annoyed some of them so much because they really felt like he needed to become a step-parent, but mom was really heartbroken that he could become a dad and settle down as a husband and a father, and still hate her so much to not want anything to do with her or with us. My dad's really weird around old family photos now, and especially the photos of him and his first wife with our half-brother that they have in their living room. My brothers and I stayed with our parents for a few nights last week, and when the extended family came over, my half-brother became a topic of conversation, and again, it was about him being married with kids and how bothered they are that he didn't come around because of that, and again, with the disappointment that he wasn't taught a lesson by becoming a stepdad. Well, after hearing this for so long, I told them that they need to get over what's going on in his life because we are not a part of it, and everyone just needs to accept it. I also said they were talking like jerks by wishing him to be miserable and to have a hard life. Like, it just doesn't make them look so great. My brothers agree with me, and so did my mom. But everybody else, even my dad, was sitting there saying that they had every right to be disappointed by how things worked out, and that I'm taking stuff out of context. So honestly, am I the jerk for speaking up and telling them to basically shut up? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. These people seriously have an unhealthy obsession with this half-brother, and it all comes down to the fact that he doesn't want anything to do with any of you. It seems like you and your brothers have accepted it, and you've kind of like moved on and you want to try to move on, but the rest of your family is just repeating this over and over again. Like, seriously, get a grip, it doesn't matter anymore. This guy is not in your life, and he literally will never be in your life ever again, probably. Like, just because somebody wronged you in some kind of way doesn't mean you're gonna get some karma revenge where they get to experience what you experienced. Like, I bet you the half-brother hasn't even thought about this side of his family in a very long time. He probably doesn't obsess over these people, who I'm willing to bet were probably not very nice people to him in the first place. And this is coming based off of their attitude, by the way. I'm willing to bet that they had some awful traits as well that probably led the half-brother into moving away from this family altogether. That's not a fact, I'm literally just making an assumption, but their attitude and the way they're going about this and like not letting it go kind of leads me to believe that they have some things wrong that they definitely need to work on. So no, you're not the jerk for speaking up, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. These people were getting obnoxious, and if I was in your shoes, I would get very sick of hearing that very quickly. I absolutely hate the company that I work for, as they are constantly leaving us understaffed and refuse to hire anybody else to help us get our work done. And I'm now at my breaking point, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I just need to say that I hate the company I work for. We are just constantly understaffed. Today was my brother's graduation, and it was so hot, and everyone has been getting sick recently, and I was so dizzy and disoriented that I almost passed out. I was going to call off, and I don't call off unless I have to, but my managers told me to take a cold shower and come in because we only have 3 servers scheduled. And trust me, it was a rough shift, and this was with half the staff we normally have, but it could have been way worse, and thankfully it wasn't too crazy. I have a splitting headache and almost fainted multiple times during the shift though. We don't have nearly enough cooks or servers, and we now have a bartender who can do nights, and half the nights that I work this week, we have no bartender. The day bartenders are awesome, but the one who is left who is trained and available for nights is so lazy. Our old bartender left as soon as she got another job offer, and seriously, good for her. They worked her to the bone because she was the only one with the availability, but now we have no one, and they don't hire anybody else. And if they do, they don't even last a month because they either quit or they get fired. I just hate this company so much, and I've been mass applying to so many places, but I haven't gotten a call back at all, which sucks because I'd assume that someone would be hiring more since it is the busier season. I'm so desperate that at this point, I think I might go check out a chain restaurant if they hire me, because right now this really sucks and I don't know what to do. Man, I don't blame you for trying to find a new job, especially when you're working for one who's like, oh, you're really sick and you don't feel well? Just take a cold shower and come in anyways. We don't care that you're dizzy and you can't walk. Come into work anyways. Like, seriously, what are they they doing? Like, I'm right there with the original poster. I can't stand when we're understaffed and I'm trying to get a job done. Like, you're putting unnecessary pressure on the people who actually stick around, and you're only going to cause more people to quit. Like, if you have enough people to handle the workload in front of you, then everybody else around you deeply benefits. And I'm talking from like the bottom up. So truly, I hope you get out of there sooner than later, because this does not sound like a healthy work environment at all. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would be doing the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for not accommodating my new neighbor's reactive dog simply because my neighbor was incredibly insulting and very condescending? Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in the deep south in the deep country, and things are a little bit different here than they are in the city. I own about 80 acres of pastures and timber, but my house is near the road. Most of my neighbors are on smaller plots of 2 to 10 acres, and I have my front yard fenced in for my dogs. I have a sheepdog and a mini Aussie, and then my livestock in the back. The road is narrow but straight, and most of the occasional traffic is loud, fast-logging trucks. The fence for my yard is set about 25 feet from the road. There's a drainage ditch and a good old 15 feet of mowed, shady, grassy strip. Now, I apologize for the length of the setup here, but it will be important later on to try and explain why this person was where she was. This morning, I went to let my dogs out, and I found a lady walking a huge gray pit bull looking dog right up against my fence. And of course, my dogs started barking as they should when a strange dog is on the property. The other dog reacted very poorly. Now, of course, I called my dogs back into the house, and then I went back out to see what was going on. Well, when I got out there, my yard is full of dog toys, and this wouldn't be the first time someone has come to ask if a stray dog lived here. When I went back outside, the lady was standing and pointing to her dog. In an authoritative tone, she said to me, "He is reactive." And I said that I could see that. She then looked at me like I was simple. She said to me, "So you have to make accommodations for him." Well, this is where she completely lost me. I come to find out that she just moved into a little rental house down the road on the corner of someone's property. Her dog is recovering from knee surgery and needs to be walked a certain distance every single day. She expects me to go down my driveway out the gate and onto the road to look up and down and make sure she isn't coming every time I let my dogs out during the day. As she was talking, her dog was snuffling around at the base of my fence and found a bully stick that my dog had dropped right on the other side of the wire and slurped it through the fence and swallowed it. She then looked at me and said, "Oh my God, that better not be beef. He's allergic to beef. You can't just leave stuff like that laying around." Well, when she said that, that's right about when I had had enough. I said to her, "Ma'am, do you see that ditch right there? Everything on this side of it is my property. You are not welcome on my property. I need you to please leave immediately because you are trespassing." She said she couldn't walk in the road because of the trucks, and I told her that wasn't my problem. She headed back the way that she came, and I waited until she left before I let my dogs back out. Now, I feel like I could have been more accommodating if she hadn't been so abrasive towards me. I mean, maybe we could have worked out a time every day where I would keep my dogs in so she could walk by for an hour or so. But you know what? I don't like being told what I can and can't do on my own property, and I feel like giving her any concession would just pave the way for more demands. So I really need to know, am I the jerk for not being more accommodating? No, you are definitely not the jerk. This lady walked up and acted super entitled. She not only brought her reactive dog near your dogs, which by the way, if your dog acts up around other dogs, why on earth would you walk them right up to the fence of other dogs? Like, that just seems really stupid, and that's a good way for one of the dogs to get hurt. But also, why on earth would she start to bark demands at you as if she has some kind of control over your property? Like, that is ridiculous, and there's no good excuse for that. In fact, the original poster goes on to explain in the comment section that they literally try to be neighborly, and that if she had just introduced herself and her dog, and maybe, I don't know, apologized for his behavior, instead of coming to them with all of these demands, they would have been happy to work something out with them. And honestly, if I was in their shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Just a little bit of kindness and humility, or at least like some semblance of like, hey, let's work this out, would have taken this situation into a different place. Like, she led off the conversation by being super hostile towards the original poster, and for literally no reason. It would have been easy to be kinder and nice in the situation, and that's like the lowest barrier of entry that anyone could possibly ask for. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for bowing down to this stupid Karen neighbor. Her accommodations were really just demands, and I bet that pit bull is only reactive because that lady is a terrible dog owner, and I really think that if you gave her an inch, this lady would have happily taken a mile. My entitled sister refuses to pay me back any money that she owes me, claiming that because my elderly dad pays pays me to take care of him full time, my money isn't actually mine, and that I should be okay with her taking it. And I'm honestly so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm almost in tears as I'm writing this because I am so infuriated. My 34-year-old sister works full time, but has always been irresponsible about money. She has a lot of credit card debt, and there's been several times throughout the year that she has either asked me to borrow money or gone into debt. My mom passed away 3 years ago, and Mother's Day is a very difficult holiday. My dad is elderly, and the last year that I was living with him, I was helping him full time because he has health issues, and otherwise I would have just gotten a caregiver. Prior to that, I had given up my apartment and my job to move in with him as a temporary thing just to help out. My dad paid me each month to help him, but nowhere near the amount of money that it would be to hire a professional caregiver. However, he wanted me to be able to get my independence back, as well as being able to get a job again outside of him, so he helped me financially with getting an apartment last month, simply because I've been helping him, which I honestly appreciate so much. I am still going over there and helping him several times a week with all of his meal prep, as well as his medical appointments, because right now I'm job searching, and when I do get a job, obviously things will shift, and he will need to get someone to come in and help. Because Mother's Day is a difficult day after the loss of my mom, my sister had suggested that just the two of us should go out today to brunch and a movie. She had found a restaurant and pre-booked the movie tickets, which I paid her for. When we were at lunch, I asked the waiter to put it on separate checks, and he ended up putting some of her items on mine because I think he was just confused on how to do it, and I said that's fine, and I just told her to send me money through a Cash App. Well, when I said that, she just kind of brushed it off and just told me that she can't do that right now. I said, okay, I'm a little confused. If he had put the items on your check, you would be paying for it. And she said, I asked Dad if I can use his card and pay him back, so I can't pay you right now. When she said that, I was getting increasingly annoyed about this because she knows I am living on a certain budget per month, and it's a pretty low budget that my dad pays me in terms of helping him every day full time. She then proceeded to tell me that it's not my money anyways. She then said that Dad is paying for my entire life, so any money that I have is not actually mine. And I was so sickened by this comment because I help him full time and I get payment in return. I don't ask her for any help, and she only helps him once in a while. She also has taken money in previous months out of my dad's account and has said that it was by accident and told him that she would pay him back and still hasn't several times over. Because she was going after me in terms of saying that it's not my money anyways, I said, well, at least I didn't steal from him. I clarified that there was a charge last month for $300 that clearly he knows was taken from him. She then started to get rude and said to me that it was by accident and she didn't steal it. We then left the restaurant and she didn't say a word to me. She just headed towards the car instead of the movie theater. I told her if we are not going to the movie, I expect my money back since I already paid for it. But she just ignored me and didn't say a word. We get back and she drops me at my car. I told her that I expect to be paid back and I'm not going to forget about it. But she just ignored me and didn't say anything. And right now I am beyond upset. It's already been a really difficult day with the loss of my mom, but the fact that I basically fronted money for her and I feel as though she has no intention to ever pay me back, and she dismissed that it's even my money in the first place, is all so infuriating. My dad also enabled her a lot, and I have tried to warn him that this continues to happen, and it's all super enabling, but he's worried about getting on the wrong page with her, so he gives her money when she needs it and just doesn't ask any questions. However, with me, if she had simply asked me in advance and said that she doesn't have money to go out today and that if I could just pay for it and she would pay me back, I would have said yes. It's more just the assumption that's really getting to me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, your sister is super toxic. Like seriously, she knows your money is tight right now, and she knows that you're going through a hard time. You literally upended your entire life so that you could take care of your dad. So for her to be like, oh yeah, that money isn't actually yours, Dad pays for everything you have. It's like, yeah, no kidding, Dad's paying me. I work full time to take care of him. Meanwhile, she's literally done nothing to help out. It's all super unfair, and I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. And I honestly don't blame you for getting upset because the way she's acting is super inappropriate. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My coworker is incredibly creepy, making uncomfortable comments towards me and my other coworkers all the time, and highly suggesting that he basically wants to hook up with me. And now I feel like I'm at a crossroads as I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I want to give as much context as possible. I'm also at a job where I have to sit here awake all night and find ways to occupy my time. So I suppose this will be helpful in more ways than one. I'm a 29-year-old female, and I work midnight shifts part-time. It is required that 2 people be in the building all night long, and I have a set position, so I work 4 nights in a row, and then I have 10 off. It is honestly a blessing, and the best schedule someone with insomnia could ever ask for. The job is easy, relaxing, and the majority of the coworkers I've met have been great. There is literally only one problem, and it's this guy who's 40 years old that I have to work with every single night. He also has a set schedule, but he is full-time. He is here 8 days in a row, and 4 of those days collide with my schedule. I am new to this building, but I've worked for this company for 6 years. He has been with this building for a few years, and honestly, he makes me very uncomfortable. I try to be open and not judgmental. I mean, I love when people are weird and unique, and I generally love conversing with people about just whatever might be going on. And this isn't a case where I'm saying, oh, he makes me uncomfortable and I can't figure out why. Trust me, I know exactly why he makes me uncomfortable. There are so many reasons, but I'm gonna start off with the biggest reason first. The very first night that we met, he expressed to me that he was single and lonely and looking for a girlfriend. Now, this struck me as odd, but I just used it as an opportunity to express that I was in a long-term relationship and didn't believe dating coworkers was a good idea anyways. This then brought him into a discussion about how he had just gotten out of a relationship with one of our coworkers. It was a girl that I had started with, and it's someone I admire because she is kind and she takes her job seriously. And usually, these are my only requirements for liking a coworker. He talked for a long time about how she was insane and led him on, and her only reason when she left him was because he was too good of a boyfriend. And this really made me weary already because that's honestly a really weird thing to say. He regularly talks about how he met a pretty girl, but not like actually met them. Instead, he mentions how a cashier at the gas station flirted with him and then would say something like, I'm thinking about moving to a town over because I would be closer to her and maybe I could turn this flirtation into something more. For reference, he lives 20 minutes away from this town as it is, and it honestly just gives very bad vibes. There also happens to be a few young boys who work here, and we're talking like 18 years old, maybe in their senior year of high school, and there's about an hour overlap between their shift and ours. One night, one of them was talking about possibly taking an extra training course the job offers because it's only a week long, and when you're finished, you get a 75-cent raise. It does raise responsibility just a little bit, but it's nothing crazy. Essentially, if there ever isn't a supervisor available, it would fall to the person with these qualifications. But it's important to note that you aren't a supervisor. I remember thinking to myself, what a good kid. It seems like he has a good head on his shoulders. Well, this coworker of mine says to him, yeah, and also think about the cute girls that you could meet while you're there. And I thought to myself, like, dude, what are you doing? You're like 40 years old. Stop talking to kids like that. I just redirected with, well, I think that's a solid plan, and you sound like you have your priorities straight. Now that we've been working together for a few months, he seems to be getting more comfortable, but I have not. I bring my laptop with me every night, and sometimes I type up work, and sometimes I watch TV, or sometimes I'm on Discord watching whatever my boyfriend is streaming. Lately, he's been coming up behind me, standing way too close while leaning over top of me, and asking me questions like, what are you watching? What's that about? He's saying whatever he can to extend the conversation, while I sit there with some random dude towering over top of me that I hardly know. It is super uncomfortable. Now, I am not shy. I have no issue expressing that I'm not okay with him being in my bubble, but he does not seem to care as he continues to do this. Mind you, we work in the middle of nowhere, and it's just the 2 of us. He is about 6 foot and maybe 200 pounds, and I'm a towering 5 foot nothing and maybe 150 pounds. So the difference is massive. Last night, he said something that really put me off. During the overlap between shifts, one of the high schoolers and I were discussing the Avril Lavigne conspiracy theory. I mentioned how she is a very beautiful girl, and my 40-year-old coworker took this as an opportunity to say to me, oh, if I could create my dream girl in a lab, I think she would look like Millie Bobby Brown. So young and so hot. And when he said that, I almost puked. Don't get me wrong, she is gorgeous. It is not wrong to acknowledge that she is an attractive person whatsoever. But when you're 40 and you're speaking about a 20-year-old girl like that, like seriously, that's so weird. I'm 29, and when I look at 20-year-olds, I couldn't imagine seeing them like that. Now, like I said earlier, I have no problem speaking up. And trust me, that's exactly what I did. I told him he was way too old to be speaking about her like that, and he said, what? She's like 25? What's the problem? So I explained that she's 20, but even if she was 25, 5, it would still be wrong. He just looked at me and said, "It's still legal." And I got very upset and snapped back by saying, "Well, legal doesn't make it right." And this ended there. So tonight, I'm here again. My last night of the 4, and I've realized that he not only makes me super uncomfortable, but I'm dreading coming to work every single night. I'm taking a lot of smoke breaks despite not being a smoker, and my boyfriend even suggested I wear my aunt's ring on my left hand and pretend to be engaged, but that doesn't seem to be getting him to back off. For the record, my boyfriend and I have been together for many years and we have 2 kids. We both want to get married and have discussed it, but unfortunately, it just isn't in the cards financially. I'm now at a point where I'm considering going to my boss. I know for a fact she would speak with him and tell him to back off. She is a good woman, and she's been my boss for the entirety of my time here. The reason I'm second guessing it is because I'm worried about retaliation, because as I've mentioned, it's just the 2 of us in the middle of nowhere for 10 hours. Also, I'm worried about my perfect schedule getting moved around. So my question is, am I overreacting? Should I let him keep being weird? Maybe I'm just taking him the wrong way, I don't really know. Or should I go to my boss and let whatever happens happen? What should I do? I don't think you're overreacting, and honestly, I think your coworker is really creepy. Like, he's making these really inappropriate comments and kind of like suggesting that he wants to hook up with you in some kind of way. Like, it's not something he's actively saying, but like seriously, it's really implied. And that is seriously uncalled for. So yes, if I was in your shoes, I would be going directly to my boss. I would be documenting everything that he said, as well as all the creepy behavior that he's exhibiting, and if anything, maybe request to have somebody else with you on those nights. And I totally get it, you don't want to mess up your perfect schedule, but you might need to accept the fact that this is going to happen if you do plan on getting away from this guy, because what you're describing does not sound okay, and in my opinion, I think you need to do something sooner than later. My job is making me miserable, and is constantly failing to deliver on all the things that I was promised, and now that I found out my coworkers are talking garbage about me behind my back, I am now at a crossroads, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, I'm 23 years old, and I've been working in restaurants since I was 18 years old. I've worked for restaurants in 2 different countries, and I'm an immigrant from Scotland who currently resides in America. I recently got a job as a host this April, and during the hiring process, I was promised that there would be 0 drama, which I knew was a lie, but one could hope, right? What helped me get the job was that I used to work for another sister company, which ironically, I had some of the same issues with as well. I was also told that I would be placed on kitchen shifts, so my first day when I was supposed to work, I couldn't because my name and information was yet to be put in the system, and it was like this for 3 days, which I was told that was just a system problem, which I completely understood. On my official first day, I was thrown to the wolves and not really trained. I naturally learned almost everything by myself, and I am actively still learning things. I don't typically trust technology with schedules and all this other stuff, so I would write out my schedule on paper just in case. I still don't have a hold of all the table numbers, and apparently I'm also supposed to take to-go orders, which is something I wasn't told to do. So now I have to learn the entire menu. It also doesn't help that we are so understaffed in the mornings, which also reminds me that I was promised that I wouldn't be the only morning host on, which is ironically enough one of the problems I had with the sister company. I mean, things can get so overwhelming. It also didn't help that multiple people supposedly trained me and told me different things because we didn't have an official trainer. When I touched base with the general manager about the kitchen shifts, he told me he would put me on kitchen as soon as he hires more people to be a host. But now he's hired multiple hosts and I still haven't been placed on any kitchen shifts. It has got to a point where I've heard new servers and bartenders talking garbage about me, which isn't totally abnormal. I knew it was going to happen one day or another, but they have so many complaints about me. They don't like the way I do rotation. They don't like how I seat people. The list goes on and on. I even heard one of the people talking about how I walk, but it's gotten to the point of blatant xenophobia, which I definitely reported, but then I was told that it wasn't happening by managers when multiple other hosts and even a server told me, and I witnessed it for myself. Right from the start, I told my managers that I would have a trip to make in late May, which would last an entire week, and all of them were okay with it. They simply told me to put in the request on the application we use, and this needed to be done 7 days before the trip. I am a big communication sort of guy, but fast forward to today and my request got denied. There is more to add, but honestly, that's just the quick rundown. I honestly feel like going to HR, but I have never gone to HR for anything before, so I'm honestly so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, this restaurant sounds like an absolute mess to deal with. First of all, they're not even giving you the stuff that you were promised, and then even though you're doing your best after not being trained, drained. People are talking garbage about you. Like seriously, that is so uncalled for and so toxic. There is literally no reason for them to do that, and it's only driving a wedge between you and your coworkers. So personally, I would definitely be going to my boss or human resources of some kind, because this is absolutely unacceptable. I would take note of everything that's going on, and I would absolutely report these people for making a hostile work environment, because in my opinion, you do not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not showing up to a Mother's Day lunch with my extended paternal family simply because they've been super toxic to me in the past? Because right now they are very angry that I didn't show up, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male, and this is the first year where I don't live at home anymore, and it was the first time it was up to me what I did for Mother's Day. I was invited to celebrate with my extended paternal family, including my dad's wife, but I chose to say no to their invite, and I spent some time with my two maternal aunts instead. This decision was controversial because my dad's wife married my dad when I was only 8 years old, and I grew up surrounded by my paternal family, and I was always there every year before this except for when my mom was alive. For reference, my mom passed away when I was 6 years old, and for context, we used to spend Mother's Day together with her sisters and my cousin. And here's another big fact. I hate my dad's wife. I hate most of my dad's family, and my dad isn't someone I respect very much. My dad's family hated my mom. They felt like she wasn't good enough for my dad, and they didn't like her parenting choices, such as not getting me into a sport from a very young age, because sports are huge on my dad's side, or even getting me in the kitchen when I was so little that I just don't even remember it starting. I just remember that being something mom and I did, and this is because they don't believe boys or men should be in the kitchen. They also don't like how dad would defend mom and would put them in their place if they brought up concerns with her, and they also thought that mom was using dad because he used to bring her a bunch of flowers once a week, and he would make things for her, such as the keychain that she used until she passed away, and even made her a bracelet. They thought dad was being weak with her and that she was turning him into someone who only cared about her. Now, I know all of this because my dad's family and my dad's wife talk garbage about my mom a lot, and they do this around me, and this has definitely led to fights. I used to be told that my dad's wife was a much better wife and mom, and I would just tell them that she's not my mom. She would tell me that I was a silly little child who just simply didn't understand adult issues, but I told her that she was a silly adult who wouldn't accept that she would never be important to me, and I would trade her for my mom every single time, and I would never love or accept her, and she wasn't half as good as my mom. I was told that she gave me something, which is something my sterile mother couldn't do. And you know what? My dad just let it happen, because when my mom passed away, he leaned on his family, and because of that, he ended up being soaked back in. And while he doesn't talk crap about mom, and he tells me it really bothers him, he simply won't do anything about it. So I have no respect for him. He is such a coward. He even leaves flowers on my mom's grave every single week behind their backs. I went very low contact at 18 years old and only got the invite because I didn't block them. I sent one reply that I would not be there, and I said nothing more even after their messages. But yesterday, when they realized I wasn't coming, I got so many text messages about how awful I was, and I just straight up blocked them. But then my dad's wife found me on social media and told me that I should be there to celebrate her, as well as saying how dare I not spend the day with my family. So honestly, am I the jerk for not showing up on Mother's Day? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't blame you for a second for staying out of that, because based on what you've described, your extended family sounds awful. Like seriously, they're gonna sit there and talk about your dead mom in a way that makes her seem like a villain? Like that's so unfair, and especially in front of you. Like if they seriously hold that kind of opinion, then maybe, I don't know, keep that to yourself until the kid's out of the room. For them to express that so openly and in front of you at that, in my opinion, shows exactly how toxic they truly are. So no, you are not the jerk for not showing up, because if I was in your shoes, I think I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that she is a complete idiot for expecting any kind of gifts for her marriage when she got eloped without telling a single person about it? Because right now she is very angry, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. When my husband and I got married, we had a small wedding with maybe about 150 people there. And trust me, that is very small for our families. We paid for everything ourselves. Altogether, we spent about $25,000, and it was in our budget, and we had saved up for it. And that literally included everything, from the dress that I wore to the wedding party's dresses and the tux rentals, while also adding in catering. If you name it, we paid for it, and it came in under budget. The people that that came to the wedding were family and close friends, which honestly is the way it should be. And thankfully, they were generous with their gifts, both from the registry and with cash in envelopes. When everything was said and done, our house was filled with great stuff that we needed, and our savings were several thousands of dollars over where we started before we paid for the wedding. Now, with that bit of context out of the way, my husband's sister just eloped in February, and nobody found out about it until early April when she sent out links to her wedding registry. Now, not too many people have bought anything off of it yet, and she is now getting super upset about that. All she talks about whenever we speak is how cheap everybody is being. Every conversation leads back to the same topic, and after more than a month of this, I have simply had enough. I asked her if she understood why we got gifts when I married her brother. I mean, we had a physical wedding that took place at a church and then a reception at a rented ballroom. Well, when I said that, she said I was treating her like an idiot and that she understood the difference between our weddings. I asked her, well, why she would expect the same kind of treatment for two very different events. I then said that only an idiot would think the outcome would be the same in both situations. Well, now she is very mad at me, and my husband said he was also frustrated with her stupidity, but that I should apologize for calling her an idiot. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for what I said? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, it really seems like she was harping about this for way too long, and in my opinion, that's just super obnoxious. And I think you spelled it out perfectly in my opinion. Like, you two seriously had way different events. You got married at a physical location, and you had it in such a way where people could plan on attending. And in her case, she's sitting there like, oh yeah, well, we got eloped. Why is nobody giving us any kind of gift? And it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe because you didn't tell anybody that you got married? Like, no one knew about it, and they're now just getting a link being like, hey, here's my wedding registry. And it's like, what are you talking about? Why would anyone give you anything? The original poster actually planned on something and wanted people to be there, whereas this sister-in-law basically did this spur of the moment, and now she's wondering, wait a second, why don't I have anything that you have? So in my opinion, I don't think you did anything wrong. I think you're completely justified for saying that she is out of line, because the way she's acting honestly would have gotten very annoying very quickly. My crazy entitled sister organized with her friends to steal my bike and dump it in a lake as some form of weird twisted revenge. But after dealing with her attitude my entire life, I refused to take this sitting down, demanding that she give me my bike back or else I was going to call the cops. And I've honestly never been more frustrated with anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that this situation is downright crazy. I seriously never thought my sister would do something like this. To get straight to the point, my parents and sister were angry at me for regularly eating in a hospital cafeteria, all because it was close to my work. I enjoy the peace and quiet there on the days I do show up to eat, but this situation escalated so radically that I can't believe that something this dumb actually happened. My sister did the pettiest thing she's ever done to me, and it was all for completely undeserved reasons too. Now, when my sister found out I was eating at the hospital cafeteria, she went off on me. She was fussing at me about how that food is just for people who are at the hospital because they need to be there. We ended up in a big argument about it, in which I told her it wasn't like I was taking food from the mouths of patients. Then she went to our parents to get them on her side, just like always, and they immediately sided with her just like I thought they would. They backed her up on how the hospital cafeteria was not a place to go eating casually, and we had a big argument. They spent days hounding me and telling me that I was wrong and demanding that I stopped. So I went online to find some kind of advice to help me out, and here I learned that not only was I not doing anything wrong, but it's a very common thing for people to go eat at hospital cafeterias just because they like to do it. Now, I had hoped that the situation would have just faded away, but a few days later, my sister called me asking if I stopped eating at the hospital. But when I said no, this all just started all over again. My parents then called me fuming, acting like I was supposed to stop going because they said so. I reminded them that I don't live under their roof anymore, and this is exactly the reason why I moved out. They take my sister's side on almost everything, and the entire time they're huffing and puffing about it. This time the fight didn't stay at home though. Other relatives found out because my sister tried to broaden her support. She was so dead set on enforcing her will upon me that she went looking for help from other relatives. But our parents were the only ones on her side, and my uncle personally admonished my parents and her over the phone for it once I told him what actually happened. He then told them that they were only siding with my sister because she's their favorite, and that they're terrible parents for ever playing favorites to begin with. Then my cousin went to eat with me at the hospital cafeteria, cafeteria and said that he would like to go there once a week as well, as he also works nearby and takes a bicycle everywhere. And we've run into each other at lunch there once before already. He was actually rather pleased to find out the food was made healthier than most other places. And trust me, he is a very picky eater, so this place is kind of his new lunch hangout. And my sister got even angrier after finding out that there were other people in the family eating at the hospital now as well. Once outed, my parents backed down due to embarrassment. They apologized to me and gave me some malarkey that they honestly thought eating at a hospital was weird and that they just felt like they needed to defend my sister. I told them that they had been placating my sister for so long that it's all they do whenever she starts something with anyone. She's been treating me like a condescending control freak and a bully since we were teenagers, even though I'm older and they just kept enabling that. But I won't be putting up with it anymore. My parents ended up conceding and then apologized. They then made my sister apologize too, and I could tell that she hated every second of it because she tried to speak through her teeth at first. Later on, my parents invited me to dinner as another form of apology, but it felt more like a show to look good to the rest of the family because they told everybody about it before it even happened. And honestly, the dinner was great, I can't deny it. My parents had cooked a turkey, and arguably it's one of my favorite things to eat. Now, here's where things really get messy. Later, after the family dinner, I noticed that my bike was missing. I had parked it in the backyard out of sight, but it was just completely gone. Now, I started to freak out because this is my only mode of transportation, and my parents did panic with me, but my sister seemed just the opposite. She actually looked happy and was giggling. Well, when I saw that, I immediately suspected her, but she just played innocent. She even looked at me and said, "Oh, I can't believe you would think I would ever do something like that." I already know she's extremely petty, but this is a whole new level even for her. So I said I was going to go over to the neighbor's house because I know that they have cameras. So they definitely would have seen what happened, and then I'm gonna call the cops. Well, when I said that, my sister suddenly looked extremely panicked, and I got mad and said I knew it was her. And right then and there, I demanded my bike back. But right at that moment, she started to cry, saying that she didn't do anything. And our parents were immediately taking her side while scolding me for daring to accuse her like that. So I had had enough, and I said I was going to the neighbors to check their cameras, and then I'm definitely calling the police. Once everybody knew I was serious, my sister finally fessed up and called me to come back. The looks on our parents' faces after they just defended her were priceless. My sister said that she was just so angry at me for having made her apologize for something she still believed she was right about. So she planned to have a couple of her friends to come and grab my bike during dinner. She said her friends were in a minivan with it just down the street. She then started saying that I couldn't call the police on her anyways because I'm her big brother, with our parents backing that up as well. But you know what I did? I pulled out my phone and I started marching outside again. They ran after me and my sister begged and cried for me to stop, but I just called her a brat, and then I told my parents I couldn't believe they were still defending her when she was acting this way. Our parents finally hit their enabling limit with her and told her to make her friends bring back the bike immediately. She got on the phone while sniffling and called her friends up, but then she suddenly ran into her room to talk to them. I couldn't hear a thing that she said through the door because it was all whispers, and our parents looked very worried as well. My sister would never willingly admit that she had my bike stolen. She just kept sobbing that it was only a prank over and over again, and she kept using the same excuse that it's just a cheap bike anyways. I mean, I did buy it used some months ago for $50, but it's in great shape, and it's my main mode of transportation. My sister kept looking at our parents to back her up, and that time they just simply couldn't do it. So she just slumped down in a chair, hugging her knees and waiting with the rest of us. My sister looked increasingly freaked out the longer her friends took to bring my bike back, and was repeatedly texting them over and over again. Even though my sister said her friends were just down the street, it took them roughly an hour to bring my bike back. They finally pulled up in the minivan with my bike shoved in the back, and it was completely soaked and all muddy, almost as if they'd pulled it out of a wet, muddy ditch. The bike is a 700C, so it's too tall for either of them to ride. So they just drove right up and stole the bike by dragging it into the van as fast as they could before taking off. And I say they stole it because I was almost certain in the moment my sister had told them to dispose of my bike. I mean, had I not pointed out the neighbors having cameras, I may have never gotten it back. When her friends did finally arrive, their legs were all muddy and wet nearly up to their knees. They both begged me not to report them to the police for taking the bike, but I asked while recording them to tell tell me the truth and pointed out that the neighbors have cameras. I wanted to know right then and there, did my sister want them to get rid of my bike? Well, they started to break down and they said yes. My sister wanted them to take the bike and dump it in a pond a few miles away, and they had to go back and get it when they realized that they were caught. My bike had been near completely submerged in muddy water, but thankfully I didn't have many added accessories on it besides a detachable headlight and my water bottle. But even then, the water bottle was missing. Now, I wasn't surprised by what my sister's friends told me, and I had them tell our parents too. Well, when they heard that, they laid into my sister till she was bawling on the floor, kicking and pounding like a toddler. And I had never seen my sister act that way since she actually was a toddler. And I found it mortifying that she was still like this on the inside. Then she shut herself in her room. Her friends were banned from ever coming to my parents' house again. And then my sister was forced to come out of her room by our mother and make another big apology to me. Our father then forced her to wash and oil my bike from stem to stem, all under his supervision, while I took apart the headlight and cleaned it out to dry it. By the time my sister was done, it was dark outside. She glared at me like I was the devil when she came back in the house, but our parents shut her attitude right down and said they've never been more embarrassed by her in their lives. She went back to crying in her room, and I had a very frank discussion with my parents about my sister's childlike behavior and how it all stemmed from their spoiling and enabling. I said that I couldn't believe that I had to be the voice of reason, but the fact that she was on the floor crying like a toddler, kicking and pounding, showed that she's still mentally a child because of them. And they kept making me the scapegoat when she's the one that screwed up, so she barely knows any sense of accountability. For once, they didn't argue with me about it, and then my father silently drove me and my bike back to my apartment with his SUV. He also gave me some money to replace my bike's missing water bottle before we parted ways. Now, my sister and her clique of friends used to bother me a fair bit whenever we ran into each other, and they liked to make fun of me as a group whenever possible. And I usually just ignored them because they bored me, and that really seemed to tick them off. But after the bike incident, I got sent numerous messages from numbers I didn't even know that were cussing me out for making my sister cry over a silly prank. Knowing her, my sister probably fed everyone she knew a very different story on what actually happened. So I texted lengthy replies of the real story and even stated that I have recordings of her friends admitting the truth. Some people at my sister's college found out what actually went down, and this might have been from my text messages or her friends spilling the beans, but it embarrassed my sister so much that she came home having a crying temper tantrum about how people were calling her and her friends awful names, as well as accusing them of being bike thieves. Now, I may not have gone to college, but I know students who need them are very protective of their bikes. I mean, after all, a lot of them live on shoestring budgets. My sister said someone even joked that they shouldn't leave a bike around her because it might just disappear if she had to apologize to anyone. My sister ended up so upset that she refused to leave her room for 3 days just so she could continue the pity party. My parents called me up to try and turn everything on me again, but I reminded them about the discussion we had literally days before and that they needed to stop babying her and to let her deal with the repercussions of her actions. If she fails her classes again, it's because she's not trying like she should be. Then I went off on how they're just looking for someone to blame just to make her feel better. But you know what? She made the problem, not me. And I was not going to be the one they make the scapegoat any longer. My sister is an adult, and she really needs to act like it. Now, at this point, they sound defeated, and then apologize before ending the call. And it looks like they were genuinely hoping I'd just sit back and take the blame, just so my sister would feel better, but I'm just never going to do that again. Now, my parents are trying to pretend this all never happened, and my sister as well as her clique are avoiding me at all cost, which I suppose is fine, because seriously, I don't want any more drama. Because trust me, the next time something like this happens to me again, I will not be taking it from any of them ever again. Yeah, your sister is super crazy for doing that. Like seriously, who plans to have someone else's property stolen all because the other person has to apologize? Like that is such a crazy response to saying I'm sorry. Like I can understand not liking your siblings and not liking the decisions they make, but to orchestrate your brother's bike getting stolen simply because you lost an argument and you're pissed off, like that is such a huge escalation. There's just no good excuse for that. Like the barrier of entry for not doing something insane in this situation was so low that it's bonkers to me that the sister still failed to be a decent human being. Like seriously, just don't steal other people's stuff. Like that's super simple. And also, what kind of friends would be willing to do something like that for this sister? Like they seriously went along with this and and said, yeah, we'll help steal from your brother, we'll show him. Like, these people are adults, they do know that, right? Like, if the original poster wanted to press charges and be like, hey, I've got all the evidence I need to like put you in jail for stealing from me, he easily could have done that. Not to mention the camera footage from the neighbor literally across the street, because I know for a fact if my friend came up to me and said, hey, let's steal from my brother, and oh, by the way, we're gonna dump his bike in a lake, I would be like, wait a second, what are we doing? This is not okay. So all of them are just as guilty as one another. They willingly went along with this when seriously, any rational human being would have been like, oh yeah, I'm gonna back out of this and not talk to this lady ever again. So honestly, good for you for proving that your sister orchestrated all of this, because based on the way your parents were acting, I'm pretty sure they would defend her no matter what. And hopefully nothing like this ever happens again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled friend is furious with me after I told her I was getting a dog that she doesn't like, and I'm honestly so confused by her reaction, and I'm worried that our friendship might be over. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened very recently, and I'm honestly unsure of how to handle it. I can't believe this is an issue to begin with, so this may be a bit of a rant. I'm a 28-year-old male, and I have a friend who is in her 50s, and we are close friends. The kind where you don't talk often, but when you do, it's always really good. We mainly talk about our pets, and she's been there for me a lot, and I really do value her and our friendship. But there is only one issue. It is never a good idea to disagree with her. She has very strong opinions and will shove them down everybody's throat. She's also notorious in all pet stores, and all for the wrong reasons. I'm not too bothered by it. I just know when to shut my mouth and agree. Arguing is not worth it, and I find our friendship more important than being right about something. It has never really been a problem until now. When I brought up wanting a Doberman, she was rather judgmental, saying that I'm too insecure to raise a dog and that a dog wouldn't solve my mental problems. I found her assumptions harmful and very untrue, even if she probably meant well. Obviously, a dog won't make my mental illness go away, but I think taking care of a dog and having a companion has been helpful for a lot of people, especially someone with mental illness. It just so happens that a Doberman is exactly what I want, as they fit my lifestyle. I'm also not as spineless or insecure as she made me out to be. But the thing is, I just don't like to argue with her because I know that she would end our entire friendship over me not agreeing on something. I don't waste my energy on an argument that won't lead anywhere. So I just didn't mention it again, and I wasn't super upset. I just decided not to talk to her about it. A few weeks later, I sent a video of a puppy that I have my eyes on. I hoped that maybe she would be happy for me, and somehow I thought that she would be, but instead, she sent me a voice message demanding I tell her which exact reasons I have to get a Doberman. It made me feel like I had to justify my decision to her, almost as if I needed her permission or something like that. Now, me having this dog won't affect her in the slightest, so I find this weird and honestly kind of entitled. Also, I knew she would disagree with all of my reasonings, so I politely said that I know she doesn't think that I'm the right person for this, but that I disagree, and I've done a lot of research, which I definitely have. I have considered this for literally years, although I didn't talk to her about it until I previously mentioned the dog. I just didn't see a reason to, and I still don't. Like I said, it doesn't affect her, and it's not like we talk a lot or even talk about everything. I told her she has nothing to worry about and that the decision wasn't impulsive. Well, she immediately got upset. She said I was very defensive, even though I acted calm and I was very polite. However, I simply disagree, and I just didn't want to justify my decision. This is probably the first time I said no to her, and she started going off about how dangerous this dog is, that it's not the right breed for me, and that she knows a lot more about this than I do, and that I should be able to explain why I want one, especially to her. Now, she does know a lot about animals, but judging by what she said about the breed, she seriously does not know as much as she claims. They were very outdated views, and some of the facts were just so wrong. She said that I only want this dog to have as a shield, and that I'm going to end up with a weapon that I can't control. But I said multiple times that I understand and respect her opinion, and that I was sorry for upsetting her, but that I simply just don't agree, and I didn't like her initial question. According to her, I turned her into something that she's not, and I was the one one being extremely defensive. But again, I was very calm, and I was never accusatory, while she was the one who sent me long voice messages in which she was yelling and crying. It seems like everything I said just made her more angry. She ended by saying I've insulted her and that I should know what that feels like. I said I was sorry about that, and that I hope we can talk about this when we're both calm. Now, at this point, I am extremely confused about what I did wrong, and I am honestly kind of angry because I feel like she's simply mad at me for not agreeing with her. She knows as well as I do that I will put all my time and energy into this dog, that I am someone who will make well-informed decisions and won't hesitate to ask a professional dog trainer for guidance. And even if we are close, we are not so close that I need to involve her in all decisions like this. But it seems like she thinks I can't do this without her approval. Now, I haven't heard from her since our argument, and I suspect that she expects me to apologize. And I'm now unsure of what to do, except wait until she calms down, and then she'll talk to me again like nothing happened. I might have to rethink this friendship, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, the lady you're talking about in this story is not your friend. No friend in their right mind would stop being your friend all because you disagree with them. Like, she sounds crazy, and I mean that quite literally. She has these strong opinions, and she's almost like policing everything that you do. And that is not a good friend. That's not even close to being a friend. That's just some controlling jerk who wants to like rule your life. And you definitely do not deserve that. And it's so bizarre for her to be like, wow, you don't deserve that dog. Give me the exact reasons why you want a Doberman. It's like, lady, what are you talking about? This isn't your mother. You don't have to like report to her about anything. And you know what? I know plenty of people whose mental health have improved because they own a dog. It gives you a routine, there's someone that is relying on you, and the dog literally forces you out of bed to feed and walk them. In my opinion, there are so many benefits of having a dog. So for her to be like, wow, that's not the right dog for you, that's a really insane thing to say, and honestly so unacceptable. And the icing on the cake, in my opinion, is the fact that she kept screaming, I'm not being defensive, you're being defensive. She was trying to act like you're the one being super defensive and accusatory and turning her into something that she's not. Meanwhile, she's sending you all these messages literally yelling and crying because you're getting a Doberman. Like, that seriously sounds like she's projecting her own emotions on you, and that seriously is like insane in my opinion. So no, you do not need this lady's approval to get a dog, and hopefully you can see that she is not a good friend sooner than later, because her behavior is seriously unacceptable, and you do not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. A crazy entitled Karen follows me around town for over an hour, claiming that I tried to have my dog bite her, and that she was going to have me arrested for my dog going to the bathroom on her property. And I've honestly never met anybody this insane in my life. Here's what happened. So last night at around 10 o'clock p.m., I was taking my dog for a walk through the neighborhood. We don't have a yard, so we have to walk her 3 times a day so she can do her business. I always pick up after her, and people usually give a friendly wave when they see us. That is, until tonight. My dog starts doing her duty at the edge of someone's yard while I stand on the street holding the leash. I'm starting to pull out my doggy bag when this lady comes running up and starts yelling at me. She says to me, do not let your dog poop right here. Now, I was surprised and weirded out, but I told her, don't worry, I'm gonna pick it up. Well, she keeps yelling as she gets closer. No, don't let your dog poop on my property. My window is open and I don't want to smell it. Control your dog and make your dog stop right now. Now, my dog was mid-business meeting, if you know what I mean, so I explained that dogs don't work that way. I told her that I can't stop her from pooping, but I will pick it up when she's done. Now, at this point, it's pretty clear the lady's not listening to me and just keeps getting closer to us, yelling about dog poop or something like that. Well, my dog starts growling at her, so I warn her by saying, please don't get close to my dog, she does bite. Then the lady says to me, okay, I'm calling the cops, they're going to arrest you. I say to her, that's fine, and I ask her to please go in her house and call the cops. She tries to enter her house, but it seems whoever she lives with has locked her out of the house, and it makes me think, man, I wonder why. She then starts running towards me, and I again warn her that my dog will bite. My dog is growling and barking now because dogs don't like screaming Karens in their face. This entitled Karen starts screaming at me to pick up the poop and that she's calling the police to have me arrested. I said to her, ma'am, I'll deal with that later. Right now though, your hostile behavior is creating an unsafe situation for me and my dog, so I think we're gonna leave now. She then starts screaming profanities, calling me names and chasing after me. So I just continue to walk away thinking that it will end there. But nope, she continues to follow me down the street. I hear her yelling into her phone at the police to come and arrest me. I hear her telling them that I apparently was gonna have my dog bite her, but I literally just kept walking running, knowing that the cops are telling her to go home and they'll deal with it later, which is honestly wishful thinking at best. She continues to walk behind me at about a 15-foot distance. She's now yelling in another language at someone who I assume is the person who locked her out of the house, and I just hope that she'll stop following me eventually so I can go home. I don't want her to see where I live, so I take several detours, but she just keeps following me from 15 feet away. I don't have my phone, so I can't call for help, so I decide to head into the downtown area to try and find somebody who might be able to help me. This entitled Karen literally followed me almost a mile into town from 15 feet away. She just silently followed me walking my dog through neighborhoods, business districts, and across the highway into town. She had her phone out recording me, and I was getting really annoyed. I eventually made it to a busy bar with 5 young men standing outside, and unfortunately they were all speaking in a foreign language as well, so I turn around and tell the lady to stop following me. She then starts yelling at me. "You follow me back to my house for the police to arrest you. You said you were gonna have your dog bite me. You better follow me right now because I want the police to arrest you." I told her, "Okay, sure, I'll follow you. You lead the way." And trust me, she was almost dumb enough to fall for it. But she saw me try to slip away, but then turned around and started her whole yelling thing again. Meanwhile, the young men outside the bar just kept talking amongst themselves. I continued walking through town with a lady following me, recording me on her phone. I finally ran into a woman who approached me with a very concerned look on her face. I said to her, "Listen, can you please help me? This lady has been following me for over an hour." The nice lady said, "I know, I've been watching this go on for a minute." She then confronted the entitled Karen, telling her to leave me alone. And it was then that the nice lady looked at me and told me to go. So while this entitled Karen was busy yelling at the nice lady about how my dog pooped on her property or whatever, I just started running. I ran through a couple businesses and onto a back street and managed to lose this entitled Karen. I walked a full mile back to my house and I locked the door behind me. Now, I don't know what kind of crazy that was, but all I know is that I feel really bad for whoever was inside that house with the doors locked, because I can only imagine having to live with that entitled Karen. Okay, so first off, this entitled Karen really is crazy. Like, who in their right mind would follow someone for that long and act that insane over a dog crapping in their yard? But also, to the original poster, you really shouldn't have done that in the first place. Like, sure, her reaction was like way out of line, but you really should have taken your dog somewhere else and like not done that on their yard. I can kind of understand why she would be upset, but the way she went about handling this was like insane. She was lying to the police, saying you're trying to get your dog to bite her, and then she literally followed you for over a mile. We're talking like an hour of walking around the city. Like, that is some crazy behavior. So good for you for getting away from that Karen, and hopefully you don't go near that neighborhood ever again, because I'm sure that entitled Karen would love to run into you again and give you a piece of her mind. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mother has gone no contact with me after I finally tell her that I'm not getting married in my home state. And now, as a result of not getting her way, she has completely cut contact with me and is now refusing to talk to me. And now I feel very hurt, and I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I got engaged 2 days ago. My mom was very happy as she loves my fiance. We have been together for 5 years, and she has always been very accepting of him and our relationship. And it's important to know that my mom has triggers that will usually set her off, especially if she feels like she's being abandoned or unwanted. And this will be important later on. Today, my older sister asked me what our wedding plans are in a group chat with her, my mom, and myself. She wanted to know if I was eloping or if we were having a traditional wedding. Ideally, my fiance and I would love to get eloped, since we both struggle with social anxiety. However, I told her that we would be happy having a small, immediate family-only wedding, mostly so I could appease my mom and his family. Well, when I said that, my mother immediately said to me, "You have to have it here though." And when she says that I have to have it here, she means my home state, which I absolutely hate and I don't want to do. This, of course, upset her, and her response was to say, "What about your grandma, your friends, and my friends?" Now, when she said my friends, that honestly got me. Why do her friends have to come along? Now, for reference, I live in another state with my fiance and his family, and I told my mom, who is very wealthy and doesn't work, that they could very easily come here. She is constantly traveling all over the world, so I figured a 1-hour plane ride would be no big deal. I even said that we could make appointments and set dates for any dress shopping or venue shopping, anything because my mother-in-law and sister-in-law would like to be included as well. They love me, and I have been considered a part of their family ever since we met. My mother-in-law works, and my sister-in-law works and goes to school full-time, so they're not as financially well off to be buying plane tickets. Now, this is where I might have messed up, because after I said that, she immediately responded by saying, "Oh, so I'm excluded from that too? Fine, I don't want to talk anymore." And it's like she just didn't even read any of my text messages, because obviously I want my mom with me. I love my mom, and I always have despite the problems that we've had. My sister tried to reassure me and said it would be okay, and that she has been through this before with her too. In fact, my mom refused to talk to her after she moved across the country with her own husband. I'm honestly just so tired of the manipulation, and I almost don't even want to invite her anymore, knowing that something else will trigger her again along the way of planning. And she gets so mean about it and tries to make you feel guilty. So honestly, I guess I just need to know that I'm not crazy and that I have the freedom to make my own decisions and not worry about what my mom's reaction might be. I'm honestly so hurt, and I now don't know what to do. Yeah, your mom's acting really irrational. It seems like she didn't get her way, so now she's like, "Oh, I'm just not gonna talk to you." And that's just super immature. There's no reason to be doing that. Like, it really sounds like she has every opportunity available to literally take the time and fly out to your wedding. She has the money, she has the time, and it just sounds like she's being lazy. And that's the only reason she's like, "Oh, but you're gonna have the wedding here, right?" Like, that, in my opinion, is just so uncalled for, and there's no reason for her to be so selfish towards you. So I definitely don't think you're the jerk here. I think that your mom is being completely irrational, and hopefully she realizes that sooner than later. Am I the jerk for not wanting to visit my wife's grandparents after they gave my lazy brother-in-law a $50,000 truck? Because right now I feel very jaded about the entire situation, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my brother-in-law is 28 years old with no job. He lives in my in-laws' basement. He is obese and survives off of welfare checks from the Canadian government. He is capable of working, but just chooses not to. My wife, on the other hand, is 26 years old and moved out when she was 18. She self-funded a degree, she works in a good field, and makes $80,000 annually, got married, and has never sought a handout from her parents or grandparents, even though they both have the means. We spent our vacation time the last 2 years visiting her grandparents who live across the country. Recently, her grandparents moved out of their house and into their retirement living and no longer had space for both of their vehicles. Her grandfather decided to give my brother-in-law a truck with a fair value of about $50,000. His justification was to help him build confidence and give him something to care for. Meanwhile, my wife was given nothing, and they did not do anything to even out the gift. We have a trip planned to visit them in a few months, but I have no interest in going to see them. I am mad at myself for letting money ruin my perception of them, but I do not appreciate how my wife was treated. I feel that they take her for granted. We always go out of our way to visit them, and all of our trips are self-funded. We have never asked anything of them, while lots of her cousins have been bailed out financially. I just have this icky feeling about the entire thing. My wife got upset when I told her I wanted to do something else with our vacation time. She got really upset, and it led to an argument. She took the stance that we have to enjoy our time with them while we have it. My wife and I are currently saving for our first house, we're paying off student loans, and we're saving for our first child. We still drive my very first car I bought 10 years ago, and the situation just really hurts, as we could really use the help, all while her brother lives a free ride and gets nothing but help all the time. So am I the jerk for not wanting to see my wife's grandparents because of this? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk for not wanting to go, but in my opinion, I think you really should support your wife no matter what she decides to do. Like, she's the one who would really know her family above anybody else, so if she wants to go and see her family for a weekend or for like some vacation time of some kind, then I think it would be a good idea to follow her lead and just go. It might be one of those situations where it's like, oh man, I'm gritting my teeth and I'm bearing this the entire time, but if that's what you've got to do so that your wife can feel happy about visiting her grandparents, then honestly, so be it. Just don't spend any time with your brother-in-law and maybe that'll fix the problem. Because at the end of the day, this is your wife's family, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would try to be supportive. Am I the jerk for being upset at my wealthy friend, all because she wouldn't even let me borrow $5, despite the fact that I've helped her countless times when she was poor? Because right now, I am deeply hurt, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So, my best friend and I have been friends for nearly 7 years. years. When we first met, she was struggling financially and lived paycheck to paycheck. At one point, her car broke down and she had no transportation to work. So I would let her borrow my car and never asked her for any gas money or anything in return. At the time, I was financially secure and I was happy to help her out. As the years went by, my financial situation changed, and just like her, I began living paycheck to paycheck. By this time, she had started dating a guy she met online who revealed to her a few months into dating that he was a millionaire. They married shortly after, and suffice to say, she has not had to struggle since. There have been a few times I've asked to borrow money, which I've always paid back, and it's usually not much, maybe less than $25 or so each time, and she would always oblige with no problems until recently. The last couple of times I asked to borrow money, she said that she didn't have it, which I found really odd. But then I asked to borrow $5 and she said the same thing, and I just thought it was weird that she told me she didn't have $5 to spare. I know that ever since she got married, her brothers and a couple other friends have tried taking advantage of her newfound wealth by asking to borrow money that never got paid back, and having her bail them out of situations that they put themselves in, and in that they have cost her a lot of money. I started to think that maybe I had forgotten to pay her back money that I owed her at some point, so I reached out to her to ask if that was the case. When she told me that wasn't the case any longer, as in I had always paid her back, I told her I felt hurt because it felt like if I needed her help with something, that I couldn't reach out to her for help because she couldn't even let me borrow $5. She replied and said that just like her brothers, I needed to learn how to budget my money better and that she can't be the one to bail everyone out. She said that when she was struggling, she had to work multiple jobs and did what she had to do. But I replied and said that it was not fair for her to lump me in with her brothers, as I have never done anything to take advantage of her, and I never would have said something like that to her when I let her borrow my car, or anytime she would ask me to borrow money when she was struggling. I told her that I loved her, but that I was ending the conversation, and she replied that this is why money and friends should never mix. Since then, she has reached out and said that she didn't deserve that conversation last night, and that she really wanted me to know that, which I have not replied to, and I have no plans to do so. I am deeply hurt that she feels I was in the wrong, but I do not think that I was the jerk here. I understand that I'm not entitled to anybody's money, borrowed or not, but when she was in my shoes, I did everything I could to help her out. I could understand if I asked to borrow large amounts of money, but I literally asked for $5, and now I worry that my friendship is completely ruined. Okay, I want to start this off by saying that I don't think you're the jerk, but I do think you kind of set your friend up in a way. It really seems like any kind of help you gave her in the past is coming off as like some kind of transactional thing where you're expecting her to step in the way that you did for her. And I just don't think that's fair at all, and I think you're setting up a weird precedent by asking for money really consistently. Like, just think about her perspective for a second. She suddenly married a millionaire, and now everybody and their mother is asking her for money. And this is especially true for her brothers and a couple of other friends. She's probably feeling really taken advantage of, and you're probably one of many people asking her for money. Like, I totally understand where you're coming from because it is just $5, but like if somebody asked me over and over again for money and then made this huge stink about me not giving them $5, like I would be pretty frustrated as well. So I don't think you're totally the jerk, but I also don't think you're not at fault, because in my opinion, it really seems like a mountain was made out of a molehill. Not to mention that there's a lot of information from your friend that we just don't know. But regardless, if this really is as good of a friend as you're claiming, hopefully you guys can work this out and find some kind of compromise to be better friends again. Because what you just described does not sound like a healthy friendship in the slightest. And hopefully the both of you are able to talk this out and find some kind of middle ground with this situation. My ex-boyfriend wants to meet up for closure a month after the breakup. And after the way he broke up with me, I'm honestly feeling very hesitant. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female, and my ex-boyfriend and I recently broke up. For context, we were together for 2 years and we were long distance. I work full-time in my state. I run a small animal shelter and do content creation on the side, while he works very flexible hours and is mostly remote, so he's always the one visiting me. He's a 6-hour drive away, and he puts a lot of effort into visiting me every other month or so. Well, I recently just started a new job, which although was fully remote, was also really stressful. So when he visited, we couldn't spend as much time like we normally do. But there was a day when I pulled an all-nighter to finish my work in advance and spend more time with him the next day when he was scheduled to leave. Now, on the day when he was supposed to leave, he decided decided to extend one more day so that we could spend more time together. But here's the thing, I had a scheduled shoot the next day and I let him know that there was a strict call time, so I could just meet him there afterwards. He insisted on bringing me, and then we can just spend the rest of the day together. So I agreed. Come the next day, and he was almost half an hour late. When he arrived, I still greeted him, gave him some love, and let him know that it was fine, but we needed to hurry since I was running really late already. Throughout the car ride, there wasn't a sense of urgency on his end, which caused us to miss 2 stoplights. And mind you, the traffic in our area is really bad, and that was one of my pet peeves. He drives really slowly, so I did react negatively, and I pointed out that I'm running late, and he could have at least told me that he would be really late, so I could have gone to the venue on my own. Anyways, he drove more quickly and we got to the venue, but there was a bit of awkward tension between us, and we didn't really talk much then. After my shoot, we went straight to the car, and I saw that he set the GPS route back to where he was staying. So I broke the silence and told him to just drop me off somewhere so that I could eat if he was planning to go home. And after I said that, this is where things really got nasty. He's normally the sweetest and most loving person, but in that moment, he became a completely stone-cold stranger. He stopped the car a few seconds later, and with the most indifferent expression, signaled for me to get out of the car. I was in shock, and I told him that we should talk properly instead, but he refused. He said to me, "Well, you want to get out, right? Okay, then get out." I ended up telling him that I'd stay instead so that we can talk it out, and just apologized how I came off annoyed at being late. He said it was his initiative to extend his stay, as well as bring me to my event when he didn't have to. So essentially, he was calling me ungrateful. I acknowledged everything and apologized for how I reacted. And I also made it clear that it had nothing to do with that. I was just frustrated with being late, but I made sure to assure him that it was fine at the start. And I even treated him to his favorite food and offered to buy him a gift at the mall the night before, just as a thank you for staying one more day. Well, he just constantly cut me off, telling me to stop talking and that he's made up his mind that he wanted nothing to do with me anymore. He wasn't aggressive or anything like that, but he was saying all of these with the most stone-cold expression. I even tried touching his arm and he just wiped it off, acting disgusted by my touch. It was the most degrading feeling, and I just ended up being quiet the entire time we were on the way home. He ended up stopping by at a drive-thru so I could get some food, and I thought that was him kind of feeling guilty for how he talked to me, so I got him a snack as well, but he just refused them without even looking at me, and proceeded to drop me off without saying a word and just drove off. A few hours later, he texted to apologize for how abruptly and rudely he ended things, but according to him, he said exactly what he said, and he meant it. He was already going home, and just said we should meet for closure 4 weeks later when he's scheduled to be in my area. Well, it's been about 2 weeks, and every time I think of that day, I still break down. I can't believe how everything went down, and I just don't think it's a good idea to see him anymore. I feel like he's made up his mind about the kind of person I am, and I just don't want to be treated the way he treated me that day. I don't know if closure is going to do anything anymore at this point, because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so in my opinion, I definitely would have blocked this guy already if I was in your shoes. Like, this guy turned into a toxic jerk all of a sudden, pretty much at the drop of a hat. And he did that over you being late for work and being annoyed that you were late. Like, seriously, that's a terrible reason to break up with someone. And you know what? For him to be like, in 4 weeks, we should have some kind of closure. Like, no, that is definitely not gonna happen. I would never agree to that, and I would just move on with my life. Because the way this guy acted was hostile and very toxic. And I just don't think that you deserve to go through that once again. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.